1, 2, 3, check. Check, check, check. Test 1. ये भी आउट है, ये रिकॉर्डिंग के लिए लगा। सी में भी डिस्टर्बेंस नहीं आ रहा। मैं सोच रहा हूँ अभी कितना कैमरा लगाया आपने? हाउ मेनी कैमरास? 2। इसको ऑडियो कैसे जा रहा है? नहीं है ना, इसको ऑडियो म्यूट कर दो।
ऑडियो
ऑफ ही रखो। उसका कंसोल से जा रहा है, उसका वॉल्यूम थोड़ा कम करो। हाँ, उसका वो ऑडियो लेवल्स रहता है ना, इनपुट थोड़ा सा कम करो। Check.
Just
Check.
ये पोर्ट
आपके पास और एक केबल है
ऐसा?
हाँ,
ये वाला केबल होगा,
ले लो,
वो दे दो।
हाँ।
Good morning, everyone. Honorable guests, respected dignitaries, our beloved mentors, our future leaders, the startups, and my steadfast team of hubHyd. Welcome to the confluence of the most knowledgeable minds in the ecosystem, our mentor meet. I am excited and enthusiastic about the day, and on this note, I request Dr. Sriram Iyer, the Vice President of the Ecosystem Innovation Team at hubHyd, to deliver the welcome address to the group today. Sriram.
Hi all, very good morning. First of all, before I get started, from bottom of my heart, I would like to thank our Principal Secretary, Sri Jayesh Ranjan Sir, MSR, our CEO and CEO of Task, Mr. Shrikant Sinha, for taking out time. And I would like to thank each one of you. Because, see, the thing is I don't know if you know Hindi as a context, but if you see Hindi as a language, there is a thing that if you don't have a mentor, or if you don't have a guru, especially in the belts of Allahabad and Bundelkhand, there is a slang word called nigura. So it is probably the worst thing that you can get as address, that you don't have a guru. You don't have somebody to give you the direction. And I feel so fortunate here that, you guys, each one of you has given us that opportunity to create that startups which will really go to the next level, and it would have been in that Nigura status if you would not have put in your effort to take them to the next level. I'm really thankful to each one of you that you are here today, so that we can, and I welcome you to this entire event, wherein that we can exchange, we can understand that what exactly is your contribution, how you are doing. We can talk about it, not only how startups really feel, but what you are. And seeing particularly that that being this engagement so well, this is the first time that we have decided that we can spend almost half a day with you, understand, do things better in the future, how we can do better for the entire ecosystem, how we can collaborate. So everything has been planned up for the day. I'm really thankful for you for turning up today and supporting startups the way you have been. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sriram, for setting up the platform and paving the right path for the day. Before we move on to the next step, I'd like to talk about the safety contact first. Since a lot of our mentors have entered the building for the first time, I would like you to know three major things. So in case of emergency, we have two exit gates from the meeting room. One is over there and one is over here on my left. The contact details for the reception, the contact number is 040-6639-6639 in case of any emergency. And in case of any emergency, the meeting point is right outside the building. On that note, I'd like to begin by an address by Jayesh Garu, and I take the privilege and honor to inviting our Principal Secretary of Industries and Commerce and Information Technology Departments of the Telangana government to share a few words on this occasion. Thank you, sir. Please.
Thank you very much. Good. I would also like to add my welcome to the welcome note given by Dr. Sriram. Very happy to see so many of you. I'll just take maybe about 10 minutes to share a few thoughts and perspectives. As many of you would know, Hyderabad is, while we have done a lot in the last 6 years or so to strengthen the innovation ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, Hyderabad, unfortunately, if you look at the popular perception or all the rankings, ratings, etc., it still doesn't appear in the top 3. And if you ask why is it, there are some shortcomings, some areas where we need to improve. One is that we do not have too many unicorns from here, which captures these days the public imagination. As you know, the speed at which new unicorns are coming up, the rate at which new unicorns are coming, and how of late they are becoming the poster boys of today's Indian economy, modern economy. Hyderabad has very little to contribute. Of course, Darwin Box is a big success story. couple of startups who had roots in Hyderabad, which have become unicorns. They also owe definitely something to Hyderabad. But as compared to, let us say, Bangalore or a Gurgaon or a Pune, Bombay, we are kind of, we are behind. Even if we don't have too much to show in the unicorns bucket, even when it comes to attracting funding, just funding a different series, even early stage funding, various series rounds of fundings, we are much behind. We are actually, if you look at the funding, we are not in the top 3, we are not even in the top 5. We are below number 5, which of course has increased quite a lot. Not to suggest that we are stagnating. If you look at how it was 6 years ago and how is it today, there is, I don't recall the exact numbers, but it is a huge jump, more than 150% or 170% or even more than that, etc. So on some of these conventional parameters, yardsticks, where people judge what is happening, which city is the happening city or the hotspot for innovation, we are not appearing. But as I said, you can only do this much and then hope for the results to come. One area where we really want to make a difference is the quality of incubation and acceleration which happens in this city. And I'm very sure that is very foundational. If this can be mastered, if this particular bucket we can really excel and become the most kind of sought after place for incubation and acceleration, rest of it will happen automatically. The kind of funding that we are expecting will happen. Some of the great startups will also become unicorn much easier, because see, while too much of hype is created about unicorn, my personal sense is that since the Indian market is so huge, if you have been able to identify a solution which meets the requirement of a large majority of that population, that startup is bound to become a unicorn. If it does not become a unicorn, something is very wrong with the founders or the team itself. So just the sheer size of the market pushes you to become a unicorn, and there's nothing much beyond it. So while I'm discarding this unicorn hype and I don't want to join that rat race, but other things about the kind of funding, etc., which goes, most importantly, social impact. Are you solving problems? Are you being talked about? Are you the go-to solution provider for any particular kind of felt need which large number of people face, the bottom of the pyramid kind of thing? I'll be more interested in getting those kind of results. But as I said, for the present discussion, I'll be extremely delighted if Hyderabad is today counted as one of the best support systems for incubation, for acceleration, for scaling up, etc. And we are quite ahead as far as other cities go when it comes to government supported institutions. As all of you know, the innovation ecosystem that has come up in Hyderabad, government has played a very large part, a very instrumental part in putting it there. This is very unlike other cities like Bangalore. In fact, if you go to Bangalore and ask people, the typical answer will be that we have risen here just because the government has stayed away from us. Not because the government did something, but the government did not do anything harmful, and therefore we are here. And right now, as of late, you must have seen, startup founders are actually lamenting the inaction of government. You must have seen what the founder of Khata book, isn't it? He wrote, and how it became some kind of a, different kind of political parties jumped into this conversation. But what the Khata book founder wrote is something which everyone talks about Bangalore. Even, I don't want to, someone is recording. I don't think it will be appropriate to tell names. But yesterday, a very major kind of a poster boy of Bangalore was here in Hyderabad. He also told that we have solutions for everything in Bangalore, but no one is willing to listen to us. So, that is the truth. It's not that solutions are unsurmountable, nothing can be done, but no one has any interest to do anything. So, that is the kind of apathy which goes into Bangalore, etc. But in contrast, what you see here in Hyderabad, the kind of attention we provide in creating institutions. In fact, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when T-Hub was created, at that time, this was one of the very few very cool buildings in Hyderabad. Now, of course, many co-working spaces have come, which are equally attractive. But 6 years ago, many of you may not know this, but lots of people used to come here just to take pictures. And many of them will ask that is there some permission to be taken to go in and take pictures and all. And I would tell them that there is some, of course, some security access will be there. You are welcome to go and take pictures, but also try to understand what happens inside the building. Taking pictures is one part, you are welcome to take, but just understand what goes on. And many of the serious players then would understand what happens. And subsequently, what happens in T-Hub has been replicated in V-Hub, in T-Works, in Task, in Rich, and various other private incubators which are here, accelerators which are here. Government of India has created lots of incubators in their Government of India research institutions like CCMB, like IICT, and lots of universities, etc. have set up their own incubators, and T-Hub has become some kind of a role model for all of them. They try to replicate, and when they try to replicate, what happens? Again, we try to highlight to follow the process which goes on here. I mean, getting a cool building with these kind of lamps and all is fine. You must have an atmosphere which attracts people, which motivates them to be more productive. But understand what happens here. And one of the key things, key elements which we speak about very proudly is the kind of mentorship which is offered here. And V-Hub also, in fact, V-Hub succeeded T-Hub. And one of the things which V-Hub started with, while there are many things, many initiatives of theirs which are very unique, but one thing which they completely copied T-Hub was the mentoring process. Like V-Hub's, if you look at the solutions and the offerings that they have, this is something which is very, very up there, so to say. So in Hyderabad, as I said, what is going on is already very praiseworthy. No other city does it in such an organized way. As I said, in Bangalore, with which we compete, there things happen by themselves. There's no hidden hand which kind of navigates things to fall in place and things to become organized and structured. Unlike here, where the government is taking a very active interest. But at the same time, there are, in my opinion, quite a few things which we need to further look into and kind of strengthen our act together. Very recently, in fact, just a matter of a week ago, I attended the annual congress of the GEN. Some of you may know this. This is called the Global Entrepreneurship Network, GEN. GEN is a global body which actually works towards creating an enabling environment for startups across countries. They work with governments in creating good policies, good institutions, good infrastructure, and reducing barriers at different levels and so on and so forth. So they play more of an advocacy role. And every year they host a congress. This year it was hosted in Riyadh. So I was asked to represent India formally. I participated in that event. And I attended a session which was really very eye-opening. In fact, I myself had never thought on those lines all these days, and what I saw there, I in fact have not shared it with you, but I was very impressed with what I saw. So Jen had called a resource person. That lady actually is a member of Jen. She lives in Miami. I think she's a vice president or something in Jen. I have her contact details, and I had promised her that after I come back to Hyderabad, we'll get in touch. So we will do that very soon. The session that she took was to explain how all the interventions which an incubator or an accelerator or an ecosystem provides, how each intervention can be monitored for its impact. So when I say that great mentoring is provided, so I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago that I'm very happy about the great mentoring which is provided in T-Hub. I don't have any data-based or an evidence-based metric. This comment which I made is purely anecdotal because I meet lots of startups from T-Hub do well. Sometimes they come into a stage where they have to launch their product, or they get a round of funding, they want to celebrate, or otherwise also they have some solution which is relevant for the government, they want to pitch before us. And when they come and interact with us, and if they are from T-Hub or V-Hub or T-Works or any of this, when I use the word T-Hub, it's a term which encompasses the entire innovation ecosystem of the government. So they do mention that they've got great support in T-Hub. They could not have done so well but for getting into the T-Hub. So anecdotally, they are all very happy with the kind of services, the kind of support, facilitation they get here. But that session which I attended mentioned that each of these can be quantified. So if someone says that I offer great mentoring, what are the metrics to check that? And this lady who took that session, after her session I interacted with her and she offered to train us. And they have actually a kind of a template to measure everything. every intervention. It's not just mentoring. Whatever else you also claim to do, everything can be measured. There are benchmarks, and you can check, and you can even compare the performance of two mentors. Not that I want to do that, but possibly, theoretically, all those things are available, and it's a very dynamic kind of a template. It's not a template which is frozen in time. We also have to, because of experience, certain things of that template continue to move. But it's a very strong template, and I assured her that we will use it in Hyderabad. So we will speak about it later. But this is whether we introduce the template immediately or not. The point which I'm driving at is that let there be some outcome of this mentoring, which apart from anecdotal response that yes, this person was my guru, and without him I would not have reached this far. But what else can you tell about him? How many hours? What was the outcome? Did it help you move from this problem point to that solution end? And so on and so forth. So that is something which we would like to introduce very quickly, and we need not wait for that lady from Miami to tell us how to do it. I mean, we ourselves can figure it out. And of course, no harm in taking inputs from her. If something of value comes from her, nothing wrong in imbibing that. The other thing which I want to mention is, in fact, I'm on the board of hubHyd as well, and in one of the board meetings I gave this suggestion. I gave two suggestions actually, which I want to tell here. The first suggestion which I told her, actually it is like a hospital. I gave the analogy of a hospital, a specialty hospital, when I was talking to the board members and the team at hubHyd. So one point which I made was that, see, different startups have different challenges. Someone is at a very, very early level. They don't even know whether the idea that they have will be accepted in the market. So they are at an idea validation state. So can we amongst ourselves, this large, brilliant pool which is there, again like a hospital, someone becomes a neurologist, someone becomes a cardiologist. So can we ensure that someone specializes in very idea stage kind of validation? Thereafter, someone else may have some other issues. Someone may like to know what kind of technologies are suitable for this idea. So many of you are domain experts in technology. Can you be focused in that kind of a bucket? Similarly, someone else would like to know if there are government schemes under which I benefit. Someone specializes in understanding the range of government schemes which are there with national government, central state governments, etc. You may like to know, can corporate support your idea? So as I said, different ways in which we can provide guidance and mentoring to them. So like this, a hospital, can we ourselves push us into developing some kind of a specialization, apart from being a general mentor of having a broad understanding about the entire innovation process. And again, the second point which I made in hubHyd is again like that of a hospital. See, normally when you go to a good hospital for checkups, you may have some ailment, but it may require some cross-examination or cross-consultation with someone else also. So in good hospitals, this happens seamlessly. You may go to a general physician, but the physician may tell you that please talk to a, let us say, a nephrologist also. And he only will link you to that nephrologist. He only will ensure that your tests are done. And when the nephrologist checks you, he feeds his input back to your physician. He may then tell you that, okay, you see someone else for that matter, a cardiologist, for example. So it all happens quite seamlessly. So can we also have a system in which all this happens, and we use technology for that? It's not that someone has to physically run around carrying you to the nephrologist or the cardiologist. It's all done in an automated way. You can point out that I have guided him in this way, but now he wants to use a blockchain solution, and I'm not a blockchain expert. But in our pool, this person is a blockchain expert. So can you tell him which is the best blockchain platform that he can use, and so on and so forth. So a seamless way in which, so this is what I told hubHyd, and they are working towards it. See, what I told was that our responsibility once a startup comes into our space is for the totality of his experiences. I cannot tell that as hubHyd, I'll only help you with this, rest of it you'll have to figure out yourself. If that is how you respond to startups, then you are a failure. I mean, every issue of his has to be your responsibility, and sometimes you may have to even go beyond your conventional call of duty. Suppose it actually happened. I mean, it's not a very pleasant example to give, but I can still give it because it's a recent example. As you know, we had very difficult second wave of COVID. While the third wave was okay, the first wave was okay, but the second wave was quite difficult. Many of us have personally experienced it. Many of the startups also, some of their members, some of their founders face challenges in tackling the second wave. And I know that, I don't know about this place, but in hubHyd, quite a few cases were helped in that way also, like getting access to a hospital bed. Because we are from the government, we do have some influence in these matters. So helping them with oxygen, and these were very critical moments. I mean, the intervention would have made a difference between life and death also. So it was, I don't have to tell you about second wave. So even beyond your call of duty, you cannot raise your hand saying that what is my role in this? This is not a startup, your innovation related issue, whether you get bed or not. But you can't be indifferent, or you can't be, completely aloof to these kind of things. So once someone is here, take care of him holistically. So as a mentor, as a team which represents hubHyd or the government before a startup, if there is anything which requires going beyond your call of duty, I'll be very happy if that happens, because these are things which don't happen in a Bangalore at all. These are things which don't happen in a Pune at all. See, as I said, the government is extremely apathetic in those cities. So as it is, there is nothing there. I don't think these kind of conversations would have ever happened in a Bangalore or in a Pune, etc. But since we do have this kind of a network where the government is very much an interested partner, a concerned partner, a caring partner, so make use of our presence. Many of these hubHyd startups, when they were looking at a go-to-market strategy, we have used our influence to help them access some markets which they would have just not been able to crack by themselves. Just because we have some leverage, we can twist their arms. We have some, some private companies have obligation towards us because they have received enormous help from us. And when we tell them that the startup has a solution which will fit very well with what you do, because of the obligation, they at least let them come and pitch. And many of the startups, because they have merit in their solution and product, they have been able to take it forward. So my suggestion is that I'm sure you have done a great job in mentoring, etc. But let us organize ourselves a little bit more. All the suggestions that I'm making, that first of all, there is a metric-based mentoring which helps us keep track, and we will introduce that. Either we will design those templates ourselves, or we will take help of the GEN, the Global Entrepreneurship Network. Similarly, encourage amongst us to put ourselves into some specialist kind of a role, in a specialist kind of a hat, so that at the hubHyd itself, when some startups challenges become evident, we are able to guide them that you can go to this person or that person. Informally, I'm sure it is happening, not to say that we are sending people randomly here and there, but if it is done in a better way. And similarly, movement between one mentor to another to third, because as I said, challenges will be multiple. So instead of letting him find his own way and feel hassled and run around and waste his time and energy, this is one intervention which also could be great. One other suggestion is that all of us mentoring is always a two-way street. While we may think that we are guiding, we are kind of helping, we are the gurus, but whether we recognize it or not, we also learn quite a lot. The experience which the startup is going through also shapes our thinking, our perspectives. If everything goes well, we learn from that experience. Some of our own beliefs, our practices get strengthened, so that is a plus. Sometimes we miss out on something, which also is a learning which we use for the next possible occasion. So how can we use all these experiences in a collective way? While you benefited in this two-way kind of a process, is it possible for your experience to benefit everyone else? I mean, there could be a pool of 100 mentors here. In hubHyd, there could be some 30, 40. Somewhere else, there could be some more. All put together. In Hyderabad, I'm sure you know this by now, that we run what is called a whole of a city approach. Like anyone who is incubating anywhere or accelerating anywhere should have a standard set of support and practices and intervention. So I would like collective experiences of everyone to benefit everyone else. So how can we do that? Can we have some kind of a portal on which mentors post their kind of learnings, Or can we organize these kind of meetups in which some of these speak? Or can we create a blog in which people post occasionally? So again, something which I particularly feel will be very unique to a city like Hyderabad. And as I told you in the beginning, that in public perception and also in terms of some conventional kind of rankings, we are not figuring. But if we do these kind of things, our reputation amongst the actual stakeholders, the main stakeholders, the startup community, the entrepreneur community, that goes up like anything. And we don't want anything else more than that. If all the startups world over, or let us say within India, feel that the best incubation support happens in Hyderabad, that is far, far more than what our expectation will be. Even if we figure last in some ranking, it does not matter to us. So these are some of the thoughts which I wanted to share. And of course, as I said, I wanted to congratulate all of you, because anecdotally I receive very, very positive feedback of the kind of mentoring support startups get here, elsewhere. It's very kind of heartwarming when you hear all this. And little bit of kind of organizing our act, putting some structures, some kind of metrics in place will help us do even better. So these are some of the things which I wanted to share. Unfortunately, I'll not be able to be here for a very long time. I know that you are having this session till afternoon. I have to go to this Meridian Hotel nearby, where a session is, where a training program is starting at 11. But what is the time now? It's 10:26. So I can spend maybe 10-15 more minutes, but beyond that I may not be able to spend time. But do brief me in the evening or later in the day. What was the general thinking? Anyone took any strong objection to what I said or something? Please let me know. But thanks a lot for interacting with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jayesh Ranjan Garu, for gracing the occasion with your words of wisdom. I'd like to invite you once more on the stage for a photograph, for a picture once, before you leave the day. And I'd also like to invite Shrikant Simha Garu from Task, MSR. Right after that, we'll call on the mentors also. Shanta Totam Garu. And Vice Presidents of T-Hub, Suresh, Sriram, PS, and Sudhir also. Welcome. No, not either. Thank you. I'd like to invite all the honorary guests, our mentors, on the stage for a picture, please. No, let it be. Thank you so much, Jayesh Ranjan Garu. Now is the time to hear it from our ecosystem partners, and there's a lot that is happening in the ecosystem apart from T-Hub as well. And I'd like to invite the presence of the CEO of Task, Shrikant Sinha Garu, to... He stepped out. Okay, sorry. Then okay, so we do not right now have the leaders from the ecosystem. However, we can start off with understanding the day and the occasion, and a very brief address by our CEO. She's not here. By our CEO MSR for a brief address, please, MSR.
So morning everyone, and I've had a chance to meet some of you during over breakfast. So first of all, we can ask all the backbenchers, पहले आ सकते हैं आप? संजय जी आ जाइए आगे. Thank you for being here, and I was telling somebody, right, we were supposed to meet at around 9 o'clock. When I came here, I was pleasantly surprised to see a lot of you already here, right? Then Dhruti told me that there was the lure of breakfast. So thank you for being here. I think it's good to meet so many of you in person for the first time. I guess all of us are now looking forward to happier times. We've had 2 life-changing events in the last 2 years, right? And it's good to see, first of all, everyone here without a mask, right? Such a relief, right? And I hope the worst of the pandemic is behind us. And maybe I want to start with one thing. I'm going to request every one of you to stand up for a minute, because for 2 reasons. One is, let's pray for those who had a really tough time during COVID, one. Second is, we all know what's happening in Ukraine, right? And I think it's important that we, register our moral support. Thank you. Okay. I have a presentation, sadly. I didn't want to do it, but I felt it will be easier to capture some of what I wanted to share with all of you. So I think, as you know, the last 2 years have been very tough. It's also been very tough for those at T-Hub, right? And for many of our entrepreneurs, right? So I took over this role actually I'll finish 6 months tomorrow, right? So what I thought we'll do is share with you some glimpses of what has happened in T-Hub over the last year or so. Second is, I'm sure many of you wanted to know, what is it that we are looking forward to doing, right? And so I thought it's important for us to, first of all, share with you what is it that we have done, what is it that we want to do. And all of you have given so much of your time so generously over the last, some of you have been associated with T-Hub for many years, some of you have been associated more recently. But first, I think, and all of you have given without expecting anything in return, right? You've given of yourselves and your time so selflessly. So we consider you to be a very integral part of the community which we are trying to build, right? So from that context, I thought it's important to share with you what we have done and what we are looking to do. And obviously at the end of it, I have obviously a very selfish vested interest in asking for help, right? There are plenty of things we want to do. And just like Jesh Garu said, it takes a community to build, or a community or a village to raise a child. All of us know that, right? And whatever we are trying to do here will only happen if all the stakeholders in the ecosystem come together, right? And all of you with your accumulated learning, wisdom, experience, right, have a huge role to play in what we are going to do as we go forward, right? So I thought it's important for you to first get a perspective of where we are, what we are trying to do, right, and get things going. So with that, okay, so first of all, again, this is a very, kind of almost a formal thank you for everything that you've done, right? I think every entrepreneur who's benefited from the support you've extended, on their behalf, I want to say a big thank you, right? And clearly, we look forward to a lot more in the times to come. Okay, So this is essentially, a formal thank you. So I'll skip this part and move on. So I just thought I'll share quickly, some of you, I think one thing which I think we have to get a lot better at T-Hub is talking about what we are doing, right? I think I've spent the last 6 months, I probably have met close to 1,000 people who've connected with, I've met entrepreneurs, I've met industry bodies, I've met mentors, I've met funding entities, I've met corporate clients, etc., etc. And the one uniform message which keeps coming back to me is, we don't know what you guys are doing. Okay? We know you're doing something, but we don't know what you're doing, right? So clearly one of the things we are trying to do and is to, first of all, Ugadi was over a couple of days back. So it's almost like new beginnings for us. So we thought we'll use this opportunity to give you a quick update on some of the things which have happened at T-Hub, right? And I'll also talk about some of the themes which Jayesh Garu talked about. In all of those areas, we have specific plans which I'll talk about. So quickly, how many of you, when you were coming into the building, saw something on your right side when you were entering the building? Did you notice something when you entered the building? Those small bikes? All of you would have seen. So that is Hala. So Hala is one of our startups. I think I can see Srikanth somewhere. You can stand up and wave to the adoring master, Srikanth. You can come up here. So they have built a platform for, it's essentially, it's not a bike play, okay, unlike what many people think. It's actually a platform play. So they have built a platform to essentially, which will allow so basically 2 use cases. Srikanth, correct me if I'm saying anything out of the way. One is for B2B, third-party logistics for players like Flipkart, Swiggy, etc. And the second one is from last mile connectivity. So for example, the bikes here are used by students here for connectivity in campuses like this. So that's about Hala. Then we have another retail startup which has built a solution called Zobase, a POS solution on a mobile, right? We have some very interesting companies. For example, in HR Tech, we have a company called Orange Shark, significant traction. And then our first startup from Sri Lanka, which is a company called Dracular, right? They have a visitor management system and a very well thought through visitor management system. Some of you may have read in the media that the much delayed T-Fund finally got off the ground, right? So I'm happy to share with you that the first 3 companies got funded last week. Okay, so the 3 companies which got funded were Perspect. So Perspect is an AI solution for HR assessment, accelerates the process of assessment. The second company which got funded was a company called Lorico, led by a woman entrepreneur. Lorico is in the business of building products based on collagen for beauty and hair treatment. So they were funded. And the third was an entity called Millet Ball. Millet Ball builds protein shakes from millets, right? So healthy options type of thing. And we will also shortly in the next week or so announce 4 more startups which will get funded, right? So the long awaited funding story has started. Again, we don't see ourselves as a fund, right, at T-Hub. Our role here is essentially to give a leg up to the startups. One. Second is, I think when somebody puts money into a startup, right, it is a vindication of the fact that we believe in their story. We trust them to build a lasting, scalable company, right? So that's what we are trying to do with them. We also started last year an initiative on, so we have access to 3 sources of funding at this point at T-Hub. So we have T-Fund, which is the Telangana state government supported fund. Then we have Startup India Seed Fund, where we get money from the center to support startups. And that money can be in the form of grants, convertibles, and so on, or equity. And then we also have set up I refer to it as a poor man's investment bank. Okay, very poor man's investment bank. Okay, so essentially early stage startups struggle to be able to get a good investment banker to support them, because typically if the ticket sizes you're raising are small, let's say about 1 crore or 50 lakhs, 3% is 1.5 lakhs to, let's say, 3 lakhs. And that's just not enough for any investment banker worth his salt, because even if you're raising 1 crore, 10 crores or 100 crores, the time to get a deal done is 3 to 6 months. Right? So the effort to outcome ratio for a banker is not adequate. Right? So we are doing this, and happy to say that 3 companies have been able to raise about 15 crore, 10.5 crores through our efforts. Right? So Startoon, and this we are doing across India. This is not restricted only to companies either which are only T-Hub or Telangana based, but across. So for example, One Dios, this is actually a Delhi based company which has built a very interesting solution for air conditioning servicing. Right? Startoon is our own. Basically it's a device company which has built a device, a physiotherapy monitoring device, right, for us. So just to give you some sense of some of the action which has happened. So one of the things when I came here 6 months ago, so I said first let's try and understand, obviously you need to understand history, right, before you start trying to make changes of what's happened. Second is let's first define who our customer is, right. It's very important when you're trying to build anything to understand whom are we seeking to serve, right. So obviously we have many stakeholders, right, but I think it's clearly in my mind the most important stakeholder for us at T-Hub is the entrepreneur, right, first and foremost, right, front and center of everything we do, and everything else we do around what we do, right, has to be what is it that we are doing to support our entrepreneur, right. So that's fundamentally what we've tried to do. So I took a leaf out of our Prime Minister's book, right. He has this famous penchant for coining these 3-letter and 4-letter acronyms. So this is borrowed from there, and I call it 6 M's and 1 P, right. So which is, how do we support an entrepreneur? So can we support an entrepreneur through access to markets, access to money, access to mentors, and then obviously you can add things around mindset, motivation, and partnerships, right. So this is what we've been trying to do. And also I think one of the things we are trying to do, part of which what Jayesh Garu referenced right now, is to actually start measuring impact of what we are doing, right. Today a lot of what we talk about is anecdotal, okay, meaning we say, listen, we think we have done a great job, but that's not really evidenced by what feedback sometimes we get from the entrepreneurs themselves, right. So there's, you have to look at yourself in the mirror sometimes and start being honest about what you're doing, right. So one of the things we are now trying to do is to make sure everything we do from our programs is actually outcome driven, right. And I want to just pick on one mentor who's sitting in front of me, Anish here. All of you know Anish? Okay. So just for those of you who don't know Anish, Anish is the founder of MyGate. Okay. And MyGate is, I think, one startup of which T-Hub should be inordinately proud of, right. So I think the largest funded startup from T-Hub, they've raised 56 million. And second, despite so many people gravitating to other waters, they've stuck here, right. So Anish has been very, very helpful and supportive, not just of the entrepreneurs, but also of T-Hub, right. And he has pushed particularly me and my team to start thinking about outcomes. So thank you. Right. So this is what we're really trying to drive, and what we want, I want making a call out to all of you is saying that we are now starting to get together in person, right. So I can see Vikrant there. Thank you, Vikrant, for being here. For those of you who don't know Vikrant runs a very successful fund called Succeed, right. Is to get all the players in the ecosystem to get together, one. Second is, I think this, because of COVID, right, we've just had not this opportunity of getting people together and starting to talk, right. And what I'm trying to see is, when you talk to so many people, and you start connecting dots, right, you find that, first of all, in Hyderabad there is so much goodwill, right, despite what we have done or not done, first. Second, we have to find a way to harness that goodwill, okay, and we are hoping that when we start doing things like this, people will start interacting with each other, and we will find things which we can work together on a common, united, collaborative way. Right? Okay, so some more quick highlights. Just thought I'll share with you a few things here. I won't read every one of these. So the first thing we've been able to do is I'll just talk a little bit about hubHyd. So I'm happy to share with you that we are being tasked by the government of Orissa to build the equivalent of a hubHyd in hubHyd. Right? So obviously somebody outside there thinks that we've done a good job, right? And they've given us it's basically a build, operate, transfer model, which we are going to do. It's a 3-year engagement, and some of you know Sriram here, right? All of you know Sriram. So Sriram led that engagement. So the work is just going to start, and we are also in conversation with a couple of other state governments as well as a neighboring country, Bangladesh, to do what we are doing here. Right? We talked about funding. We have tried consciously in the last few months to try and get this whole community thing going, right? So we've done a number of events. So for example, I'll just talk about a few of them which we did. So for the first significant one we did was a community event where we had about 180 startups together, type of thing. Then we did an event called Confluence, which is where we had 35 corporates drawn across 5 sectors: health tech, med tech, HR tech, enterprise applications, and one more, and about 40 startups pitching to them, right, to help them get the market access piece going. We did a funding event. We got a few VCs to come in and get startups exposure, etc. So we are trying to get that whole community thing back, right? I think I'm not being, I think one of the feedbacks I got when I met so many of you across was I think they felt that hubHyd needs to become a lot more humble, a lot more approachable, and also stay close to the ground and try and leverage the goodwill which exists, right? Goodwill can only take you up to a point, after which people say let's get something done, right? So this is what we are doing. One of our other programs, which is we run a lot of programs to create this whole entrepreneurial mindset in young people. So we have a couple of programs called Kickstart and Launchpad. So there we had 7 colleges last year when we started. Now we have about 35 colleges. So we are getting this whole thing about young people getting more exposure to potentially becoming entrepreneurs. We launched a couple of new streams of work, right? So I have Rajiv here hiding behind a pillar. Rajiv, you can stand up. So Rajiv has been a mentor. He's also supported us in launching a program on EV, which is the new space. So essentially, it started out as a program for skilling, but it's also now evolved to a program for entrepreneurship. Because we do think with EV, with the advent of EVs right now, I was reading yesterday or day before in ET, I think EV market share is still about 0.7% of the overall passenger vehicle market, but that number will go up gradually. So there will be tremendous opportunities for entrepreneurship in the EV space, right, across different areas: sales, service, manufacturing, etc. We also launched a program on Tollywood. Is obviously, everyone knows the 2 biggest hits of last year were from Tollywood. So there's an opportunity for creating a set of entrepreneurs around the cinema space, right? So which is sound, cinematography, editing, etc. So we started that. We also, as you know, we support many of our startups through full service provision, which is cloud services, legal services, accounting services, all of that. So we now have about 97. We had about 80 in the beginning of last year. So we added about 17 more partners, and so some of you in the marketing space, etc., have been very supportive. Right? So that's just a quick snapshot of some of the things we've done. We run a program with Atal Innovation, which is basically on 3 sectors: healthcare, mobility, and so on. So there again, we've been able to support all our startups with access to corporates, to governments, and academic institutions. We started a angel funding program. Rajesh, if you can come up. Come up, though they can't see you at the back. So Rajesh has been himself a successful entrepreneur, and he runs the T-Angel program. So we managed to get about, I think about 40 plus angels onto the program, and they've now started writing checks for our startups. So all of you high net worth individuals, please do become part of the T-Angel program. Thanks. So we've just actually, some of them have already got funding. So for example, Magnific, right? 2 deals right now in process, and we should be able to announce them in a week or so. Obviously, till the money is in the bank, one can't make noise, but it will happen. Right? So what we are trying to basically do is to increase the pool of capital and all of that to startups. Okay, so having said that, I thought I should just spend a few minutes before we get into what we are going to do in T-Hub as we move forward. I'm sure one question is, when are we moving to phase 2? I'll talk about that for sure, right? But there are other things as well we'll talk about. So I just thought, so we did once, obviously, every new CEO has to do this, right? Exercise. Sit down and do a SWOT, and then tell people, listen, I'm coming up with a whole new strategy. So I have also fallen victim to that. So I've come up with a new strategy. I won't read all of this. Most of it is self-explanatory. But I'll put it this way. Fundamentally, it is about making T-Hub relevant. Okay, whatever we are trying to do is about making T-Hub relevant and about adding value to the community which we work for, which is entrepreneurs. Right? So I won't bore you with all anyone wants to spend time on this, and anyone has any suggestions on what we can do to address each of these problems, please reach out to me. Right? We'll fix up a time. So we'll become, so one is being relevant, second is being accessible. Right? So I heard that from a lot of people that they felt T-Hub had become very distant, disconnected from reality, and living in ivory towers. So hoping that some of what we are trying to do will make that perception go away. Okay. So what is it that we are trying to do here? I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about some of the things which Jayesh Garu talked about. I'll throw some numbers at you, and then I want to we have a session, Sanjay and I have a session later. I want to use that also as an opportunity for some brainstorming to be done on a few things. So let's talk a little bit about one of the themes he spoke about, which is about funding. Right? So if you look at funding, last year, right? About close to 900 million came into Hyderabad. 898 million came into Hyderabad, compared to about 370 million in the previous year. So we can all pat ourselves on the back that there was a 121% increase in funding. But then the reality sinks in when you look at the numbers which happened in other cities. Right? So we had Bangalore was 30 billion. Okay, so we got 3% of Bangalore. Even Delhi got 18 billion. Okay, billion, right? So we got 5%. Sorry, that was Bombay, and Delhi was 10 billion, right? A city further down south, Chennai got 1800 million. Okay, almost double of what we got. Even poor little Pune, right? I was trying to sell to him saying why he should move here, right? Was 1.5 billion, right? So we are 6th, right? In the funding table, right? So when you think about it, why is it so? Why are we so behind? So obviously there are some historical reasons and all of that, but I think it's also to do with the fact that we have some legacy issues which we have to overcome, and more it's about creating an environment where, see, capital chases good ideas and good entrepreneurs. Very simple, right? So we need to build a system which will support entrepreneurs who can scale to the next level. So that's what we are trying to do, right? So what we've tried to do is, now if you want to create an impact, okay, there are, I think, two horizons at which we have to work, and which is what we're going to try and do at T-Hub as we go forward. The first one is what we've been traditionally doing, which is working with early stage companies, right, and supporting them, incubating them and getting them to the next stage. We have honestly not done a lot of work in the acceleration space. Okay, we talk about it, but if you ask me to give you 5 examples of companies where we have had significant role to play in accelerating their progress, right? Let's say getting them to a Series A and beyond, right? Or even getting them, to let's say IPO types. Honestly, we haven't done much, right? So what we are trying to do is, now if you want to create, and I come from Bangalore, I'm a Hyderabadi, grew up here, did all of that here, went to Bangalore for 27 years, and then came back. So I think I have, that way I think I can say I have a perspective of what's happened there and what we need to do here in Hyderabad. So 2 things, right? So Bangalore had 2 big, inflection points in the entrepreneurship journey. So one was Infosys in the 90s type of thing. The other was Flipkart. Okay, we didn't have anything like that here in Hyderabad, right? So when Infosys happened, post that, many service companies, Mindtree, etc., happened. Flipkart, all of us know what happened after that. We haven't had that here, right? So, and obviously we have one Darwin box, right? Hopefully we'll have some more as we go along. But if we want to really create a large impact overall, see, we have plenty of things going for us in Hyderabad, right? We have good infrastructure, we have a very supportive government, we have good talent, right? We have an airport which is relatively easy accessible compared to Bangalore, for example. We will not die of pollution like in Delhi, right? We will not sweat to death in Bombay or Chennai, right? But something is missing, clearly, for us to make things happen. So what we thought is, we'll do 2 things. First is, whatever we are doing today, for example at T-Hub, which is essentially the Horizon 1, right? The Horizon part is very simple. It is about executing better what we are doing today. We are doing a few things. It's about doing things sharper, more focused, getting entrepreneurs to scale quickly, giving them all the support they require to get to the next level. And the second part of it, which is the more challenging part, is trying to identify companies which have reached a certain threshold and now have to get out of that orbit to scale to the next level. So think about this. If there's a company which is already doing a couple of million in revenue, has already raised $3, $4, $5 million of capital, and is now looking to get to the next stage, right? Because for them, the initial survival pangs are over, right? They are now starting to put together a team. They have a certain base of customers, etc. What can we do to get them to scale to the next level, right? So we're looking at this from 2 angles. What we've been doing so far predominantly has been in the Horizon 1, and we haven't done much in the Horizon 2, right? So what we are now trying to do in the new, the new shape of things to come is to try and almost do 60 or 70% of the work will be focused on Horizon 1, and about 30% of the work will be focused on Horizon 2. So we've started doing some work, and this year hopefully you'll start to see some really more visible action on the ground. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. One of the other things which one is looking at is, so when you think about how entrepreneurial activities have been happening, so obviously if you think of, for example, you think of Bangalore as an example, right? So Bangalore, everybody will say has been largely tech, to some extent direct to consumer type of thing. If you take Delhi, things like Make My Trip and all of those, there's a certain clearly identified focus. If you take Chennai, it's now SaaS. So that some 2,000 plus companies who are doing SaaS in Chennai, right? So if you think of Hyderabad, we have some sectors where we have very strong capability. So if you take pharma, life sciences, for example, we have strong capability. But if you take the startup part of what we are doing in Hyderabad, I don't think there is any particular sector where we can put our stake in the ground and say, listen, if you are a startup in, let's say, in a particular sector, right? So if you are in fintech or in edtech or in, let's say, in blockchain, or you are, in logistics or anything, you will want to come to Hyderabad, right? So what we are trying to say is, we have, for example, we have some 40 plus research institutions here. We have at least a dozen high quality academic institutions in Hyderabad, right? Why don't we play to our strengths, right? Why don't we build a game plan where we can play to our strengths and can be identified as a space. So for example, if you think about, let me give you two global examples so that it becomes easier. So if it's anything to do with tech, where will you be? You'll want to be in the Valley, in California, okay? Anything to do with medical devices, you'll want to be in Boston, right? So what is it that we can do, right? Or anything to do in cyber security, you'll want to be in Israel, for example. So what is it that we want to do which can help us have a distinctive competence or a distinctive capability in these areas, right? And one of the things I'm hoping we can do during the conversation in the afternoon, later today, is to identify these areas, right? Now that is not to say that we'll only do these, right? All I'm saying is we'll probably do a whatever 60-40, 70-30 type of thing, because we also have a role to foster entrepreneurship of all kinds, not necessarily only in the 4 or 5 sectors which we are there, right? So basically these are some areas which we've kind of identified, which we think will play to our natural strengths, right? So for example, you take AI ML, while it is a horizontal, there are now 80 plus startups in AI ML in Hyderabad, right? There's also an opportunity in some of the newer areas. So for example, if you take something like metaverse, right? We are starting to see some interesting startups in metaverse out of Hyderabad, right? We also know that we have a gaming sector here, which is a large cluster coming up. So what can we do in the metaverse and cluster thing, right? So one of the things I'm going to ask all of you, right here, is to spend some time, we'll discuss this during that conversation, because what we also know, for us to build this capability is not going to be easy, right? So, you need, for example, even from a mentoring standpoint, we will need people who bring deep subject matter expertise to that space, okay? Not just general business mentoring, right? So I want to quickly introduce Sanjay. Sanjay, if you can just stand up. So Sanjay has come all the way from Bombay. Sanjay is now on a sabbatical from Kotak Bank. He used to lead the SME product and strategy for Kotak Bank, and he's helping us on 2 areas. So all of you have heard about this thing called digital cash, the central bank digital cash, and something like what has happened in Ukraine will probably further accentuate the move to digital cash, because if you had money in rubles, you are dead. The currency is not worth anything now, right? So that will accelerate. I think all central banks will now start to move and accelerate the move to digital bank. So he is going to lead that for us, and also something around blockchain, right? So we've started to put the building blocks of all of this. So one request, and one of the things I'm trying to work with Dhruti and all of that, is to really understand what each one of you can, we need to understand you better as well, right? Not a superficial level of engagement, but really understand, apart from what you're doing currently, what are your interests, what are the things which, really drive you to come in and support us, and how you can contribute to us, right? So, and we'll also move to, I know all of you have been doing this pro bono for us so far, right? But we also recognize time is money. All of us have only one resource at our disposal, which is time, right? So thinking about moving to a partially, compensated model, where, you get certain amount of hours you give us out of the goodness of your heart pro bono, but, love, fresh air and all only can take you up to a point. After that, it has to be supported by some economic return for the time you spend, right? So we are putting that in place as well as we go forward. Yeah. Okay, we are also going through a restructure. I won't bore you with all this, but broadly, this is how we are going to restructure. Essentially, we had 3 teams earlier. We had a corporate innovation team, we had a startup innovation team, and we had something called an ecosystem team. Ecosystem was this, mentoring, for example, was part of ecosystem. Funding was part of ecosystem. So just trying to get it reorganized so that there is, first of all, a clear focus. Everybody is clear about what they are accountable for, what outcomes they are supposed to deliver, etc. So we are also from what we are really doing, and for those of you who've been in IT services for a long time, like Sanjay, will recognize that this is no different from what people have done for the last God knows how many years, and that model has worked, right? So essentially create a revenue function, create a delivery function, and then a support function, right? Nothing different, right? So essentially to make sure, first of all, we have one face. So for example, when I came here, I found that we had 3 funding desks at T-Hub. So we had 3 different teams trying to help capital raise for our startups. Which means, imagine, for example, if Vikrant was there, Vikrant would get hit on by 3 of us from T-Hub, which doesn't make sense, right? So just trying to clean up some, as any organization evolves, over a period of time, all kinds of random compromises happen, and so trying to just get some of that organized. So broadly, this is what it will be, which is have a revenue function, have a delivery function, and then the support functions as we go forward. Yeah. So that's, we're done, right? Last slide. So that's really a quick snapshot, and I thought I'll just share this with you. Probably have taken a little longer than I originally planned to, but look forward to your support. And as I said again, at the risk of repeating that old tired cliche, it takes a village to raise a child, and replace child with entrepreneur, and replace village with the community we are trying to build. So look forward to your support, look forward to getting to know all of you one-on-one, and I'm sure together, I'm hoping that if we meet here next year same time, April 6th, 23, you will find we've been able to make a significant impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MSR, for your motivational words, and to walk us through what's coming next in the ecosystem through the mentors and through other ecosystem partners. And using that as a segue, I'd like to invite our ecosystem partners, leaders from our ecosystem partners, to address the mentors on the stage itself. So I'd like to invite the Chief Innovation Officer of TSIC, Shanta Thotam Garu, to address the group with her kind words.
Hi everyone.
Thank you, Aish. Good morning, everyone. I see some familiar faces. For sure, you guys know, like, I was part of T-Hub. Banu is there, Vikrant, Funny, Ravi, yeah. So I was with T-Hub for almost like 3.5 years. I still feel like half of me is still with T-Hub. Although I started working with TSIC. So at T-Hub, I spearheaded corporate innovation programs, and I know the worth of mentors. What mentors can do for startups, for sure. When we were doing the accelerator programs, we got the corporate team members to also mentor the startups, especially with the technical details, when they develop the proof of concept and, kind of work strategically with the corporates. So it's like a make or break deal. I always say that. Thank you so much for, being part of T-Hub, and you will see really good. Telangana is the youngest state of India, and we are well on our way to kind of, to progress every year. I've been kind of witnessing what's been happening in the past couple of years in Telangana, which is phenomenal. And we will definitely have a good number of startups which will be accelerated and will be taken to IPO. I know it's a big responsibility for MSR, but I'm sure like he will definitely do that because he worked in Bangalore and the ecosystem, and he understands the voids. He already assessed what is happening in Telangana and how would we kind of take this game to the next level. I wish you all the best, and Telangana State Innovation Cell, we are doing a lot when it comes to building and nurturing the culture of innovation across the 33 districts of Telangana. So we are not just focusing on startups, but also how would we kind of build the, some people kind of like recognize me and say, you are part of T-Hub. I said, like, yes, with all proud, like, with that, with the, I feel like, I bleed T-Hub for sure. So I'm sure like we will share more stories like, at next level when we meet again, your stories on like interacting with startups and association with T-Hub. And I'm sure like it's going to be super awesome. And we might also look into mentors. I'm pitching here MSR, sorry about that. For Telangana State Innovation Cell, we might be looking into mentors too, to help grassroots innovators. They come from different backgrounds and settings, so but we haven't thought about it like what exactly it looks like, but we'll definitely come back to you. I wish all of you guys the best and success association with T-Hub. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shanta Totem Garu, to grace the occasion. I'd also like to invite the Chief Execution Officer of TASK, Shrikant Sinha Garu, to address the audience here.
Just show them the path. So we are going back to the old story where instead of teaching someone, giving them a fish, you actually need to teach them how to fish itself. And that's where the difference between a good mentor and a mentor is. And congratulations to all of you, whatever I have heard, whatever I have met. And in fact, couple like Anish had been also one of our guest speakers at TASK also in one of our sessions. I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. So I think all of you deserve a very, very big round of applause to start with. A system like T-Hub, WeHub, TSIC, Rich, Task, T-Works, etc., that exists today in the state, I think it's unparalleled. Nowhere else do you have such kind of an ecosystem. And everyone has been given a particular role. For example, if you look at Task, we are supposed to be creating an entrepreneurial mindset. And that's where last year what we did is, of course, apart from looking at how we could work together, etc., we had launched a program called as I4TS, Innovating for Telangana. And this was predominantly looking at social and rural innovation. And this was a program which started for the youth, whether it was school dropouts or some of my students across 718 colleges that we have. We have skilled about 577,000 students across Telangana ever since our inception through TASK. We looked at all these students and we said, first, let's see, how do you create an innovation and entrepreneurial mindset? And from there, the journey can start. So that's what we did. For 5 weeks, linking it to SDGs, we created a program very clearly on looking at an innovation and an entrepreneurial mindset creation program. And then we moved on to the next stage, which is more in terms of a 12 weeks entrepreneurship development program. Needless to say that all ecosystem partners were there. T-Hub played a huge role. All the academic institutions were there, IIT, IIIT, ISB, etc. in this program, and we were able to launch it really very, very successfully. One thing which we lacked was people who are there in this room. We didn't have a good set of mentors. So again, MSR, I'm also pitching over here. We are about to launch our second cohort, but definitely we want mentors such as all of you here in this room to actually help these students, because I think it is important for us to nurture these people. It's important for us to ensure that these people actually become part of this ecosystem later on. We want to become a feeder point for all the people. Second thing, what we did recently, we did a job fair in JNTU very, very recently, last month itself. And one thing that we said was this time, let's take a mindset change For the students also, typically if you look at a student, 17,624 students wanted to apply for Infosys for just about 200 jobs, right? But for a startup ecosystem, there were not many takers. So this time we pitched very, very clearly and said, we want you to go and join the entrepreneurs. And that's where we were able to do. A lot of students appeared for the interviews, and I don't know what the final select is, Sriram, but I think, Sunil, but it was quite good because students are now getting interested in joining the startup ecosystem also. And that required a mindset change, which Task is willing to do. Here's an open invitation to all the startups over here. Anytime you require any people, right, at no cost to you, please let us know. We will put up your requirements on our portal, and we are very proud to say that being a government organization, right, about 350 plus corporates advertise their entry-level requirements on our portal, right? We'd be happy to put up your things on it so that, you can get the right kind of manpower that you require. Probably, instead of pitching for myself, I think I should also say that Task is also proud to be part of this thing, and thank you once again, MSR, Sriram, and all the people involved over here, and of course, all of you for, inviting me and helping me share some of my thoughts where we could probably collaborate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shrikant Garu, for gracing the occasion and with your wise words. It can be clearly seen that how significant knowledge assets our mentors are when we see leaders from the ecosystem pitching for you at an event at T-Hub. And using that as a segue to the next section, which is hearing from our mentors themselves. So we have been privileged enough to have a pool of really good knowledge assets that is our mentors associated with T-Hub. However, we would like to call a select mentors on the stage to address the audience and share their experiences of T-Hub. So I'd like to first of all invite one of our star mentors, Mr. Ravi Kumar Jain. He's the Director and Professor of Finance and at Symbiosis Institute of Business Management at Hyderabad. Sir. Sir, before you begin, just wanted to share a few credentials about yourself. So, your association with us is everlasting, and your experience and expertise in agri-tech, ed-tech, and go-to-market strategy, acceleration, business strategies, and guidance to our startup, and also in and around the ecosystem has been immense. We would really like to hear from you and your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very interesting to, first of all, see all of you all, most of the friends, my association from, day one, T-Hub 6 years, and my association almost is that. Seeing people after a long time in person, flesh and blood, without masks, difficulty to recognize without mask, in the morning. So he said, please wear the mask so that I can place you. Okay, so that introduction of professor sounds, professors, what he is doing it, entrepreneur. I call myself as I introduce myself as a banya with a penchant for academics. I hail from a Marwadi jewelers family, and my first startup was a jewelry segment in our family business. And 2 campuses I had an opportunity to build, academic campuses. I don't know, we talk about millions of dollars and all, so maybe it was around $15 million of investment so far in academics that I championed, and taking up one more project, Indian currency for 450 crores, a new campus in Mumbai. Just to place that, I'm relevant to the startup world, because normally when you say professor, startup pe kya kar raha hai? I enjoyed my journey with T-Hub so far. MSR, from a speed dating format to a more organized, structured way of engagement, the T-Hub has moved in the last 6 years a long way. And what we could achieve in terms of impact, in terms of number of aspirations that we have nurtured and touched through not just T-Hub but the entire ecosystem, that is, so many clusters like Task, or T-Works or T-Funds and all. It was so heartening to see Perspect AI. Is Jignesh here? My first mentee in Facebook cohort, if I recall, it was the first Facebook cohort, and he was my first mentee, and I see that T-Funds has funded him. So very heartening. I don't see Jignesh here, but I see that somewhere he gives his location as cabin 2. Still there. Okay, great. So convey I would try and catch up to convey my wishes to him. It was an interesting experience in terms of learning and also inspiring to aspire big. As Srikanji said, just show the path, you don't do for them. So many a times the occasions where the temptations were, sir, can you get us these leads, or can you get us, some hook up with some funding guys and so on. But perhaps, we restricted ourselves to ensure that they work on the idea, strengthen their strategies, and work on their, business aspects, so that they automatically get attracted, funds get automatically attracted. Though T-Hub doesn't have anything to boast about, the so-called Soonicorns or unicorns and all, but as Jayesh Garu has said in the morning, the number of lives that this place has touched is immense. I'm not sure if that can be said for the other places. And we are very proud to, I'm personally very proud to be part of this ecosystem. And this place also has given a lot of good friends, a lot of professional associations, and a lot of learning from the startups. So I'm sure going forward, I'll be able to continue doing the same in whatever way possible. Thank you so much, Tia, for giving me this opportunity. And thanks all the fellow mentors, and some of them are good friends now, for being here, and good to see you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Ravi Kumar Jain. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Ramesh Swaminathan, the Director of Product Management at Informatica, Data Governance and Privacy. Okay. Fortunately, Ramesh is not around with us in person. But next mentor that we have is Sundari Pisupati, the co-managing partner, Tempest Law Associates. We'd love to hear from your experience of associating with T-Hub. And before that, I'd like to introduce your credentials to the audience. You've nurtured startups and empowered them in the ecosystem with your expertise in private equity, corporate and commercial litigation, indirect taxation, and general corporate advisory. Thank you so much for that. We'd love to hear your experiences with T-Hub.
Thank you. So thank you for having me here this morning. It's a pleasure and honor, and I'm really glad to see T-Hub's new initiatives and T-Fund, and under the able leadership of Mr. M.S.R. Garu, and then the new team at T-Hub. It's a wonderful thing to see how this is evolving, because we've been involved in T-Hub's initial stages as well. We were, I represent Tempest Law Associates. My partner, Mr. Ravi Prasad, was very well involved in the initial drafting of the, setting up the entity, T-Hub, and then the drafting of all the legal documents and articles and everything. And also he works closely with Task as well, from the initial stages, Mr. Ravi Prasad, Tempest Law. And our association has also been that from the legal side, it's very important for startups to have good lawyers by their side. Though we may seem as evil, lawyers are a necessary evil, I would say, because you'll realize the value of good legal advice and partners who can assist you, especially when you're scaling up. Because initially when you look at legal costs or any kind of this thing, it seems a distraction from you growing the business. And I say this because there are quite a few startups in the audience as well, and we see many when we've been fortunately also been associated with a new couple of investments that T-Fund did recently, Lorico and also Millet Bowl, Tempest Law, we were doing the diligence and we did the legal documents as well. What we see is, especially in the initial stages, labor law registration, say Shops Act, or any of those other offer letters, employment agreements, which is not really, well, some of those are neglected by the startups initially, and when they really come to hurt is when there is some kind of a, all the team members, people who have been closely associated with the innovation or intellectual property go join a competitor. That's when you start looking at, is the non-compete working, non-solicit working. And then of course, there's a stage to everything that you want to get it done. So some of the registrations and then FEMA compliances, it's good to receive money from outside India, but there's a lot of compliance reporting, which if you neglect, that will come to hurt you at a later stage when you have to repay or repatriate. So there are multiple areas where we see, and also 3 or 4 founders come together, set up the startups, but don't have the proper founders agreements or, your own internal agreements. And so after some time, with the fatigue or startup journey, if somebody looks to exit, you don't know how to deal with, all the equity that is sitting with the other founders. So there are quite a few legal issues that we generally see. And, it's important to take care of those. And that's how we've been mentoring, and also when companies are not doing well, they have to shut it down. How do you comply with all the statutory compliances? You can't escape income tax, you can't escape the statutory dues. So quite a lot of issues. So we've been advising companies who are associated with T-Fund and then T-Hub for a long time, and we look forward to a continued association. And congratulations to all the initiatives that are happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your motivational words. Next mentor that I'd like to invite on the stage is one of our key mentors who has been also working along with us since really long, Millie Kataria. Millie, please welcome you on the stage. Millie is the head of branding and marketing at HESA, one of our T-Hub startup itself. And she has been associated with T-Hub, as I said, since years, and has been using her expertise in market segmentation to go-to-market strategies, to growth strategies to help startup in their journeys. Millie, we would like to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, and a very, very good afternoon. Basically, it's really great to see so many people, with the same drive to help startups and make them grow. I don't have too much to, probably speak about how or what do we do. Marketing and branding being the most, the most used, or most the most used term nowadays, because startups, they have to go to the market, they have to present themselves, they have to showcase their products and services, and of course build a brand for themselves. So marketing, like I always talk to my startups and say that that is a parallel, or it's a horizontal which runs in tandem with all the industry. Aspect is somehow lost when they are building the product, when they are conceptualizing or even trying to go to the market. It's very important for the founders to internalize that this is an important aspect, and it has to be addressed in the same manner you're addressing your product or you're addressing your your funding challenges. So that is what I have been talking about with my startups, and it's very important when you are a mentor, that you first build that rapport with your founder. And once you build that rapport and understand where the founder is coming from, you build that trust with your founder, and then the rest of the things start. We as mentors are doing this, but somewhere in the rigmarole of being mentors and being the people who are going to be the the path showers for the startups and the founders, we forget to probably empathize with them and understand where or what are their difficulties or what are their vision for the startup. So I always talk about the business aspect more than just the product aspect, because what you're doing, what is your expertise, is going to be your expertise, and you're going to mentor the startup because, through this expertise. But for you to understand the entire business and then mentor them to be ready for any kind of contingencies or any kind of changes or pivots that they would like to go, or they even don't know about, and you have to push them, or you have to show them that this is something that you will be part of your journey. That is what I feel mentors need to develop within their founders and help them grow as a complete business rather than just being a product centric or very, very industry. I understand the industry is where they're going to be, but then being product centric is what I am talking about, because what I see, almost 80% of the founders are very, very tech minded. They are very product centric. They need that hand holding, or they need that overall understanding of the business for them to become a 360-degree startup and reach for the unicorns or the unicorns. So that's what I can give my 2 cents on. Thank you for inviting me, T-Hub, and it is a great pleasure.
Thank you so much, Millie. It's great to hear from our women mentors as well. Next, we have one of our key mentors again, and a startup founder also. We have Anish Antony. I'd like to invite you on the stage, Anish. He's also a co-founder at MyGate, as MSR mentioned earlier. He has been working with T-Hub on helping us with some strategies for T-Hub as well as for startups as well. Anish, over to you.
So I won't take too much time. I'm typically not a very avid speaker. Just a couple of points, right? Today's a lot of, sorry to all the entrepreneurs here, a lot of entrepreneurs come to with ज्ञान, है ना, वो ज्ञान देने आते हैं आपके पास में. Obviously, there is a lot of information that is available on open source today, right? As key mentor, every mentor has his own way of mentoring a startup, right? But I try to put it into context. You might read a lot of stuff on open source. How is it applicable to your startup, right? That is something that we can put in perspective for you, right? Secondly is that, this is again a key phrase that we use all the time. In the graveyard of execution, you will find many a tombstone of strategy. सारे strategy आके वहाँ पे दफन हो जाते हैं execution में, right? So please try and put the execution perspective also in place for them, because most of the time, if you see the percentages as well, right, they are around 68,000 registered startups in India, and somebody mentioned that there are 61 unicorns, right? You put that into percentage, execution will be a very big element in those guys not making it, right? They are very big names. They are Ola Eats, Uber Eats, all of them सारे आके दफन हो गए ना, right? So the perspective that I am trying to give is try and put them into context for what knowledge they come from open source with. Second is try and hold their hand in execution as such, right? They believe that their pitch deck is the best, but maybe we can give a few inputs on what actually we are looking for or investors are looking for, right? And what is acceptable by the market. I think I try to add my 2 cents from that perspective, but beyond that, I think it's all for the entrepreneurs to travel the journey for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wing Commander Anish Antony, for your address. Next, we would like to invite Mr. Vikrant Varshney from Succeed Ventures to address the audience. Vikrant has been working with T-Hub startups to help them understanding funding and also with funding avenues as well. Over to you, Vikrant.
Thank you. That was a surprise for me. I wasn't expecting, but glad to see many known faces in the room. I've been with T-Hub since 2015 when I decided to come out of my corporate attire. I still wear cufflinks, I can't give up on them, but I guess I was told initially, like it was told to T-Hub, that you're not approachable, so I started to fold my sleeves. But startup founders, they have their own passion, and we just need to see that we channelize the energy. I like the slides, MSR. All slides were very full of strategic thinking, so I can see how you have started to think differently, and which is very interesting. They were not necessarily update slides, but they were strategic thinking slides, which means we are going back and starting to think for our next wave of journey. Happy to support on that process. When I started, I initially was an angel investor like many of you in the room, and then we gradually started to make that as an angel network, now to an angel fund. Ours is a small 100 crore fund supporting early stage companies. So happy to work with all the T-Hub companies which are part of the slides or which are in the other initiatives of T-Angels and others. So happy to work on one of the M for sure from your slide. Happy to work on market access to a certain extent based on whatever I've done and whatever our network of investors have from that. And I also feel, this mentor network that we are creating is something which is unique, right? We saw Shrikant also trying to see if he can use some of it. I think instead of all of us trying to create a mentor network separately, we should look at mentor network created at pool. And if my fund and my portfolio company need a mentor access, instead of me creating a mentor access separately, I reach out to you and saying, from this pool, can I take this mentor to help this portfolio company, right? So shared services of mentor network rather than individual mentor network managed and supported by everyone. That would be my support and my input. I am similarly in any of your guys, if you have a network, they're looking for funding, happy to look at them. We supported 1,600 companies last year, and we did 56 investments in last 1 year. So we are rapidly investing. We are local Hyderabad based, so anyone who's in Hyderabad, Telangana, Andhra, all of that would definitely be close to us. We are in any case geography agnostic, so we continue to support everyone. But we are also happy to collaborate in everyone in ecosystem. We have a very good relationship with TAI in Hyderabad, with Hyderabad Angels, with few other venture capital bodies like Parampara, which is a new avatar now, and all of others as well. So collaboration, I guess, is the key, and look forward to work, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikrant. It was wonderful hearing from you. We have heard from some of our key mentors. Now we can hear from some of our key startups. As MSR rightly mentioned, startups and entrepreneurs are at the middle of our ecosystem. So we'd like to invite a few startups to share their experiences of how they enjoyed the mentoring session and how it added impact and insights into their startups. I'd like to invite Binyas from Eat Coach Eat to share their experiences with T-Hub.
Hi, I'm Binyas from Eat Coach Eat. I think the name says we are all about eating, nothing else. So we are a food-based community actually first, then we are turned into a complete F&B platform, we can tell. So initially started as a small food community which explores food for people in Kochi. Now after 9 months of mentoring all sessions from T-Hub, Facebook Accelerator Group, now we are a member of 9 people right now doing all the work related to F&B. Again, we have a startup accelerator program of our own coming for F&B startups. We have a kitchen for community where we are starting a cooking together and exploring more home cooks to more into venture-based entrepreneurs. And to talk about the mentoring session, I'll just put it. 9 months back, just me and my partner is Karthik. So it was just us. So if we are in a meeting, the meeting is happening for Eat Coach Eat. If we are doing a video shoot for a content production, that's happening. Or if we are meeting in sponsorship, that's happening. But right now I'm talking here, I know there is 2 videos being shooted in Kochi. One of my brand collaborators is talking to a sponsor for Accelerator program, and one of the designers is designing our kitchen design. So that's the change. From just a 2-member team, we have reached a 9-member team where things are happening parallelly just because of the accelerator program on the mentorship. And I believe the first thing that I talked to PS, then he do, what are you doing? So we didn't have a clear idea. Then he gave us the first thing. We are a content-driven community accelerator, community group, where our content speaks a lot and it makes reach out to a lot of people. And the last session that we had, how to make it a scale-up program. And with all the mentorship and all the classes that we went through the 9 months. So thanks a lot for the T-Hub. And I think more to come and connecting with more mentors over here. Nikhil was telling me there's a lot of mentors you should meet and get to know. So which is going to have the next stage, hopefully. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Binyas. Lovely hearing from you. Next, we have one of our key startups who's also a co-working startup, Karthik from Zobase. Karthik, would like to hear from your experiences of T-Hub and T-Hub mentors.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karthik. I'm founder of Zobase. So Zobase is a store management app. Basically, we are helping very small, medium stores whose daily sales is less than 1 lakh rupees to go from a traditional pen and paper to a digital way where they can have more KPIs about their business. So far, our journey was good. We have good MRR of 9 lakh rupees and we have users over 100 countries now. We have 3,200 paying users. And like talking about T-Hub contribution in our startup is like I was part of Lab 32 batch where we got a clarity on like how to get, how to ping market, how to understand the user needs, which actually gave her a very big curve in terms of like retaining the users. And then we were part of T-Angel program where we understood like how to pitch investors. And I'm very much fortunate to have mentors like Anish, MSR sir, to guide us whenever we had any problems. So I mean, the initiative what T-Hub has taken is very, very important for any startup. Because as a startup, we are more focused on product, right? So we might not know more about what business angle, what strategies we need to do. But like having a friend like T-Hub is very, very important for any entrepreneur. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik. Wonderful hearing from you. It's always great to hear from startups about their experiences because that's where the real impact is getting created. Next, we have one startup in a D2C space, Organicness, and I'd like to invite Sandeep to address the audience and share your experiences of T-Hub and T-Hub mentors.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandeep Tata. I founded a company called Organicness. It's a marketplace for organic, natural, and sustainable products. So I did my MPhil at Cambridge, and I was a bureaucrat as a part of United Kingdom government. But during the COVID wave, I came back to India and wanted to start something of my own. I was really passionate about like healthy foods and sustainable way of living. I'm a vegan myself from last 3 years. So I was really excited to start the company, and we did our full thorough market research. We dedicated 6 months for it. We had all the valuable insights, input, and we were really excited to launch the website and go after the market. But what I realized after a certain point of time is we only had that excitement. So we overlooked so many fundamental aspects like a key strategy, how to reduce the burn rate, the business modeling, fine-tuning it, talking to the customers, onboarding different brands, pitching them, and there are so many aspects that we have overlooked. But we were really fortunate to get really good traction initially itself. So within 4 months of launch, we did around 40 lakh sales, and the average order value was great. Retention rate is also good. So that's the reason why I have applied for T-Angel program. So T-Angel program is focusing to connect startups with the investors. So I was really fortunate to work with Mr. Rajesh Adla, who was on stage before. He mentored us really well throughout that 3 months program, and we could able to really rethink and reflect on those fundamental aspects that we were really lacking initially. So that's how we could completely reduce our monthly burn rate and increase the customer experience exponentially, and now we are growing quite well now. So that I definitely give credit to T-Hub as an overall ecosystem, and also especially like mentors here like Rajesh and we were also fortunate to meet a lot of mentors within the ecosystem. So that was really helpful for us and the way we are looking organicness right now. So thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share the experience with you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Great hearing from you. Next, we have one more startup. Startup name is WinMac, and the founder is Sudhir. Sudhir, we'd like to hear from you about your experiences with T-Hub and T-Hub mentors.
Hey, hi. So I'm Venkat Sudhir. I'm a founder of health supplement startup, Vitamins and Me. So we are a personalized health supplement startup whereby we customize your supplements based on your health goals, age, gender, and other environment conditions. So we just started as a pilot. So we just started just like that. And then basically I'm from an academic background. I was there in Singapore for more than 9 years, and then during the pandemic came back. Then we were working around some things. So basically, being from academics, we just know the product. I mean, how we can do good formulations, quality formulations and all. But when we got into T-Hub, it's not only research or formulations, you know, they were giving, guiding us on business development, finance, branding, everything. I mean, basically from scratch to, they let us to grow to sell. As a pilot, when we launched, we didn't sell almost for 4 or 5 months. And then we were into T-Hub program, and then we were working on several aspects, and then we launched our pilot. So we just sold from 0 to 100 within a few months. So we just had our pilot, and then we are working on how to go bigger and scale further. I mean, thank you. I mean, Rajesh Sarla has helped us a lot, and then Suresh sir has helped us a lot during this. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Sudhir. We have one of our startups who's not here with us in person, but would like to share their experiences through recorded video. Let's hear it from Rinku Shah, the founder of Fitness to Flash.
Hi everyone, this is Rinku Shah. I'm founder of Fitness to Flash, and this is a special message for Mr. Banu. I'm very thankful to T-Hub and Meta, because through this Facebook Accelerator program, I got introduced to him. One of the most incredible things I've learned from him is to emphasize on your storytelling. I still remember our sessions where he used to say your story has to be powerful. It's either about yourself or your business. It's the why which is so important. His mentorship has guided path for me. Is just what I needed at that point of time to scale up my business. It also boosted my confidence on conveying my vision to others, even to my team members. It also opened up a lot of possibilities on the growth and the clear understanding on where and what is the time to actually scale on your next level business. Apart from the above, Mr. Bhanu has been always prompt in replying and also providing me suggestions and guidance all through the way. I remember I used to get stuck and I used to message Mr. Bhanu that what do you think I should do, and he used to like promptly reply, you know, boost my confidence. He always motivated me that, you know, I was on the right path or what I could do better to actually, you know, in success. So thank you so much, Mr. Bhanu, for all your support, and I promise to think big, as you keep saying, and make you proud. I do wish to be a mentor like you one day for my team as well. So gratitude is the word, and thank you so much.
Great to hear from you, Rinku, if you will be attending this event live online. And just for everyone to know, Mr. Bhanu Reddy was a mentor for Rinku. And so this is some select startups talking about their journeys, their experiences with T-Hub and with T-Hub mentors, and which was really important for us because that is where the real impact is getting created. One special mention that I have in terms of mentors, and we would like to hear from one of our key mentors. So we would like to hear from one of our mentor who came down to the event from Bangalore, Mr. Ravi Kiran Prabhakar sir. He's a partner at Chirac, and he has been associated with T-Hub's. since very early days of T-Hub, and has been supporting and advising startups on their different startup journeys. Ravi sir, I would like to invite you on the stage for an address.
Thank you. Feeling a little nervous being put on the spot. My journey with T-Hub has been quite long. In fact, I was part of the first cohort 6 years back when T-Hub collaborated with the Pearson Institute of Israel, and I was one of the mentors for the first program. Till even the recent one, I think Startoon Labs, the name was put up there, so I mentored that startup. I want to thank T-Hub for all the good work that they're doing, especially for the startups, because I don't know if they realize the value that they're getting, specifically from the government. I come from Bangalore, and what Jayesh Ranjan said was true. I mean, we are the 800-pound gorilla where everything's there. We are big in everything, but infrastructure is crumbling. Things are very bad, and for the longest period of time, we were like, it's good that the government is not poking their nose into the ecosystem. And now we realize that that is not the case. We have reached a point where government has to do something. And the fact that T-Hub is backed by the government and there is so much that the government is doing is something that we should all take back. And it's great to be part of this ecosystem. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to be part of the system, to be a mentor. And I look forward to interacting with all the mentors here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi, for the address. It was wonderful hearing from you. And next we we'd like to invite MSR on the stage once again to acknowledge the contributions of our mentors over time at T-Hub.
Most of our mentors here is part of the four. Quick, Tanuja, you can't hide there, yeah? Please come up. I didn't see you because you're sitting in the back. So, for those of you who don't know her, she is the founder of Beyond Pinks. Okay, so I'll get Tanuja to say a few things about what she's been doing. Please don't hide at the back. That's unfair.
I live that cause. I have a D&I organization, and it's been many years since I'm associated with T-Hub, where we are just kind of extending the entire mentoring concept which we are doing for women now for mentoring entrepreneurs. So we are looking at different partnerships here, and thank you very much for bringing it up. 75 women across the country which Niti Aayog shortlisted, and the reason they kind of picked my organization is we are looking at solving the D&I challenge by using technology. How do I reach scale? How do I impact large number of women? That's the cause I'm working on, and this is a concept which is very, very close to my heart. I would say I didn't realize when I was growing up I had so many mentors who have impacted my lives. You really don't call them mentors, but they are there with you in the journey. Today I continue to look for mentors all my life. I would say at least 20-25 people who have impacted my journey in the last 3 years as a entrepreneur, and wherever I am is because every step of the way you are just reaching out to people and asking for help, and different perspectives is what it makes it to reach where I am. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this growing ecosystem of mentors. Women entrepreneurship is something which is very close to me, not just because I am a woman myself. I think there is tremendous potential sitting there. All they need is a little nudge. So I continue to work with them on working with many women mentors as well. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the lunch.
Thank you so much and congratulations, Tanuja. Now, we've heard from all the key with startups, mentors and other stakeholders sitting over here. So I'd really like to invite Mr. Sanjay Jesrani on the stage and MSR to start the AMA session.
So let me start by saying Sanjay was a customer. Okay, many years ago when he was in the CFO of Sierra Atlantic, and today is my opportunity to ask him why they beat the hell out of us negotiating pricing. Okay,
so he's hitting me back today.
Maybe Sanjay, you can start with some introductory remarks, because Sanjay is, for those of you, how many of you don't know Sanjay?
Come on. I think most of them don't know me.
Okay, so then we'll start with a brief intro, and which Sanjay had asked you to do yourself.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I can talk about, I've known him when he was in Sierra Atlantic, which got acquired by Hitachi and so on, but he's a man of many parts. So I think your own journey, and I've heard interesting stories about how he...
give a quick 2-3 minute sort of background so that some of you who may not know me, like MSR said, I was part of a very interesting startup journey. And I like to say that it was a $100,000 to $100 million journey. So I worked only with one company all my life. I was fortunate. I joined them as CFO. This company was called Sierra Atlantic. Interestingly, we were founded in the Valley and in Hyderabad simultaneously. There were two co-founders, both Bitsians, Sharat Sura here in Hyderabad, and Raju Reddy, some of you may have heard of him, in the Valley. So with a very frugal capital base, we were a global startup. And I had the good fortune, to be part of a founding team which saw that growth and the scale. As CFO, I had an opportunity at a very young age to take the company public here in India. We were listed on BSE and NSE, took it back private, grew through a variety of acquisitions, and then finally got acquired by Hitachi. This was a part of Hitachi called Hitachi Consulting, a Dallas headquartered consulting company. We got a very handsome all-cash exit. I stayed for 3 years as the CEO of the acquired entity. So from CFO, I went on to be the CEO. And then I left. But Hitachi was also very interesting. But, the thrill of being part of a startup journey from a 10-member team in a 1,500. Frugality is not about being cheap. Frugality is about being careful. And I like to share that with all my startup founders, that your dignity is yours always, right? In fact, even as part of a bunch of angel investing networks, starting from Hyderabad Angels to Indian Angels, I'm part of Mumbai Angels, I'm fairly active in Thai. I always like to tell my colleagues that ultimately the entrepreneur is the king, right? It is the dignity of the entrepreneur. Just because, some of us pay 1 lakh a year and get a membership of an angel investing network does not mean that you should not treat the entrepreneur well. You don't ask funny questions, don't try to poke holes into the entrepreneur. An entrepreneur who walks away from your network with funding, that's great. Without funding, they should come back and say that this is the network to talk to, so come back. But I digress a bit. Let me give you a little bit more background. I'm a Pakka Hyderabadi, by the way. So I do want to mention, I've been in Hyderabad 57 years now. T-Hub is one of the new landmarks of Hyderabad. Proud to say that, right? Golconda was always there. Charminar was there. Then high-tech city happened. I've seen each of those. Karachi biscuits, right? So we are known all over India, maybe with a lot of our global customers also. But then T-Hub happened. So T-Hub, remains one of the latest icons of Hyderabad. In fact, I have several people all over India, like all of us, relatives and people, who like to talk about Hyderabad, they bring out T-Hub very prominently. Yeah. So the last part I just want to mention is I left corporate in the beginning of 2014, 1 Jan 2014. It's been 8.5 years now, and I've thoroughly enjoyed going back from corporate into startups. I really, I was so immensely fulfilled by my own startup journey that I felt whatever I had learned. Basically, I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a Gujarati. I come from a business family. I cut my initial teeth in a manufacturing unit in Sanat Nagar. We had our own family business. So I've seen life very closely. I've handled manufacturing, handled labor, government, PF, ESI, custom sales taxes, and bunch of that. And believe me, through my IT journey, that's something we carried in the culture, that IT, we were all very overpaid because of the dollar conversion to the rupee, but it wasn't a reflection.
To now ask startups, I can see Karthik here. Who are the other startups? They're all sitting in the back. Yeah. So I think Srikanth, maybe if you guys can come up a bit. So I have a few questions, and I think I want collective wisdom here to deliberate.
Please.
Right? So Karthik, from your experience, Karthik Srikanth, Mundaran boss. Grab a mic. Can we also get a few more startup founders to come up? So one question which I'd like you to throw to the mentors here, right, is to detail their expectations of what they want from a mentoring relationship. What do you expect from a mentoring relationship? And I'd like the mentors here to respond on what they would like to see in a mentoring relationship. What makes for a good mentoring relationship?
Sure. Would you like somebody else to take a start? I think, yeah.
So we'll start with you.
Ways we should not even pay or think about it. So that is one. And also second thing is from the domain knowledge. Like, let's say I come from a business, I have business and I want to reach a particular, I want to go pilot of a use case. Maybe I would like to see if there is some kind of domain expertise which can actually help me to validate the particular hypothesis, whatever.
What are your expectations from a mentoring relationship?
More of a practical, guided as Dave, Rahul Bambi, Karthik. They've all did the similar thing. Earlier, there were
come from different backgrounds, right? And there are startups who are into who belong to different sectors. There are deep tech, there is logistics, there is D2C, and there are so many types of startup. It could be we are completely ruining our marketing, or it could be we are not picking up the right people. Or so there are several fires that are going.
Investor in a drone startup in Bangalore, very mature. They're probably in the top 3 now. So I recollect it's been about 3 years now that they were getting a very large PO from a state government, which was drone survey for a land titling operation, right? And T-Hub is sort of backed by government. There may be government folks here. About 30 crore rupees at a time where his previous year's revenue was 2 crore. Okay. Now, I come from a largely finance background as CFO, of course, seen a lot of the other parts of the business. But my input to him was that you will choke on this business if you take it. Because the working capital required to execute a PO of 30 crores, which could revenue at even say 3 crores per month, your actual cost of inputs, right? You raise your first invoice, which might get paid in 6 months later, which you might still face a haircut when you get payment, or some officers changed and then you don't know what happens, right? So sometimes I think even from a startup perspective, I think it's great to think through certain key aspects, right? How do you formulate your ask from the mentors? But one overarching point, MSR, I believe personally is I think for mentors, it's very important. This is not a short-term thing. This is not a mentor's role is not to be searching for, or you need to have 2 or 3 complementary skill set co-founders before you start, right? I'm also very active at hubHyd. I find a lot of deep tech teams coming out from the same class, 3 co-founders, all from deep tech, right? They will make a super product, which could be a world-beating product. But who's going to take it to market? Who's going to handle the finance and operations part? With your initial bootstrap.
Startups don't want is Gyan.
Yeah,
right? Sure. So let's hear it from both sides in terms of what makes for a really good, some, let's say, guiding principles, if you will, right? From a mentor side, what is it that, there's like a Lakshman Rekha which the founder should not cross, right? The founder cannot delegate the running of his business to you, right? He cannot delegate, abdicate, whatever to you.
Yeah.
And what makes for based on your experience of mentoring, right? You've mentored so many companies. What are the best, the companies you mentored, right? If there are some 3 or 4, let's say, things which really stand out, right? Sure. Where it's been a really two-way, productive engagement, right? What is it? And I want to throw this open to other mentors as well after you finish.
Sure. So the first part was the Lakshman Rekha not to cross, right? From a mentor perspective. Yeah, I think like I sort of alluded to, you really want to help, okay? So for founders also, I think it's important to interpret. A mentor can be like a parent, right? So my son is 25, my daughter is 28. They don't want me around, not as a mentor, not as a parent, right? So you want your mentor out of your hair. You don't want them, looking over your shoulder all the time. And I don't think mentors want to actually do that, right? So from a mentoring perspective, I think it's important to first spend some time in the setup of understanding, right? You do a couple of deep dive sessions with the founders, understand the business, and it's not that one mentor can take care of everything, right? And I also want to mention that I don't think mentors want to give Gyan. I don't think, at least they expect that, yes, I will fund you, okay? And I said, boss, it's like a arranged marriage when, boy meets girl, right? There is no turning down. This is not about, did somebody sort of like me or not like me. It's a process of discovery. So a process of pitching for funding is also like that. It's a process of discovery. You don't have to be subject to judgment at that point. Somebody doesn't have to say yes or no. So mentors have to take time. They have to be a little patient. They have to be listening a lot more. What I really enjoy, some startups absolutely stand out, MSR. Like you said, even in the mentoring interaction, and why many startups, it's also about the mentor helping them that how do you set up a structured cadence, right? Don't hesitate to ask for the mentor's time. Let the mentor say, no, I can't give you that much time. So I'll give you an example. I have a startup out of Hyderabad with whom I have a half an hour cadence once every 2 weeks. Okay, we spent a couple of sessions deep dive, and now it's a regular sort of. So prior to the call, which is every Monday afternoon 2 o'clock to 2:30, I block time up to 3 o'clock. We actually have a running Google sheet which covers the agenda. It covers what items we discussed prior. There is a monthly report of the key metrics of the business which is coming up. There is a report of what is the business funnel which is out there. And the founders, 3 co-founders, they have a ask list saying these are the 3 things we are looking at. While on the ask list, I just want to mention that founders versus investors also, I am a big fan of regular communication to your investors. Don't go back to them only when you need more money. Good, bad or ugly, at the end of each month, if you can send a 1-page summary with a last para saying my ask of you is I want an introduction into MSR at T-Hub because I want 3 seats there, right? I want to get introduced into Novartis you play golf with the, head of Novartis here, please introduce me. The moment as a founder you engage your investors, they become your partners. Don't let them stay on the other side of the table. Likewise with mentors.
Okay, Sanjay, I'm going to come back to this part. I think two questions I had. One is,
I think we sort of covered that. Don't be judgmental early on. That's very important. Don't hesitate to plain speak. I think if a mentor, sees that a particular founder has come with a plan which is not yet thought through, which is little very initial, maybe half-baked, you are better off advising the founder frankly and be candid. I think that's very important. I would say the third part is when people ask you for mentorship as a mentor, feel free to take a few startups under your wing, but you may not be able to take all of them. So it's always quality over quantity. If some of us feel that we can handle 2 to 3 startups in a month, you want to, give say 5 hours per month or so, set aside that budget, but go for spending time with the startup. It can't be like somebody mentioned speed dating and things like that. I think you have to become a part of the startup as a mentor. You spend time, you get to understand their life. That's very important. The fourth part, in fact, even from an investment perspective, what I have found is that a lot of my mentoring relationships have given me a chance to spend time with the startup, understand the startup founder, and there have been some relationships where after 6 months or 12 months of mentoring, I have actually chosen to participate in a next round which they were picking up. So I don't know if I did 4 MSR, but quick cover, yeah.
okay, so I'm going to 2 more questions, and this is something which, again, I'm in the startup standpoint, right? So I guess one of the expectations from us, right, to the network you have, right? And, there has to be, again, I guess it's about the trust and comfort and all that. Absolutely. So, what are the 2-3 things which a startup should do, right, to be able to get you to start saying, okay, listen, I know, XYZ, for example, let's say there's an IoT startup, for example, right? Or there's a EdTech startup, right? And, obviously the expectation is they looked at, your LinkedIn profile. Sanjay will have 24,000 connections. So, sabko ek mail bhej do, And obviously that's something which you won't do.
Sure,
right?
Sure. So, No, it's a great question, MSR. Thanks for asking. I think there is always a threshold, So what one looks for is that what is the rigor which is being applied by the founders in what they are doing. That's number one and very important. It can't be a sort of, casual approach to the venture itself. There has to be a clear business rigor. In fact, Subroto Bagchi, a lot of you may know him, ex-Wipro. I'm not bragging about this, but across my golfing network, my Thai network and investor network, I do have access to a lot of friends, where I do reach out and tell them that, listen, give me 30 minutes time. In fact, because of both our corporate backgrounds, MSR, we also have apart from the entrepreneur network, I have a corporate network which are customers, potential prospects for a lot of B2B SaaS startups, right? So it works all the time. But a demo of the product, understand that myself. But as long as I am convinced that this founder and this team is now ready to have a customer among the network I'm looking at, I'm very happy to ask, almost demand a 30-minute direct time by a decision maker, which can cut through all the 3 months of pitching cycle which is needed. But to my view, rigor is the single most important thing. How complete is the solution? How deeply have they thought through? What is their approach to business? That part is important.
So let's try and quantify that rigor.
Sure. Okay. how do you quantify rigor? So again, I can take a live example. Is not a problem, right? This same startup whom I said I mentor once every alternate week on Mondays, real life incident, right? So I connected them to a very interesting company. So these people have a sort of alumni engagement solution. Very interesting company. So I connected them into a founder friend of mine who runs a company which is about 3,000 people. They are also part of a much larger financial group which could potentially open them up much higher. So the quantification of the rigor MSR was that actually this company already has customers like Tata Steel. They have very large colleges, universities on their client list. So to me, they were far beyond the threshold I was looking for. Okay. There is another HR engagement startup which also I went through that recently. There, yes, I did have an issue because they had 4-5 customers. They had a sort of enterprise product, but it needed to be integrated into certain aspects because it could cover about 60% of what a corporate would look at. So there I did tell the founder that, listen, it looks to me like you're about maybe 6 to 12 months away or a couple of modules away from my being able to introduce you. So that's my quantification.
I'm going to ask a couple of more questions on behalf of the startups, and this I want to throw open to not just Sanjay, to everybody else, right? So, both from particularly for the mentor as opposed to the mentee, mentee would like it to be lifelong free.
Of course.
And unlimited access and all of that. But like suppose you were to try and put a kind of framework saying what is reasonable for a startup to expect in terms of how much you can commit on a pro bono basis.
Right.
And when should the startup start thinking seriously about remunerating you either by way of equity or by way of some retainer or whatever type of thing?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, it's a lovely question, MSR, and a very practical question which lot of withdraw from mentoring a startup which is not up to the mark. Possibly yes. I'm saying that as a mentor, you should take 3 months time, maybe give them a couple of hours a month so that you understand the startup well enough. And at the end of 3 months, you review your position. But I think your question was also from the startup's perspective. And let me answer that. The same 3 months, the startup gets a chance, the founders get a chance to understand what value this mentor can bring to the table. And I repeat, I don't think there is a magic bullet in mentoring. Ideally, you should have, just like the co-founder mix of, different core pillars of business, go-to-market, operations, technology. Even in your mentoring, like some of the startups already mentioned, right? They could be deep domain insights which you need. They could be go-to-market insights. They could be finance insights. They could be, supply chain operations insights. So look for a mentor board or an advisory board of at least 2 to 4 mentors. Okay. Assess what the mentor is able to bring to the table. If you like what the mentor is doing, there are established models of equity, right? I'm sure T-Hub has some model. There was the Founders Institute which had a model. There are term sheets which are available. You can go anywhere from say 0.25 to 2% of the equity, which can vest again over a period of time. In fact, I've heard horror stories of a startup which was demanded 5% mentor equity by a mentor upfront. The mentor was a very senior, corporate/government official who promised, because this startup did need a lot of support from corporate/government, who promised to take active part, got the 5% equity, and then sort of just, it was a loose marriage, right? Yeah, but the point, MSR, I just want to make the key point which you asked is, I don't think the mentors are necessarily looking at, making money from this, at least in the Thai network and a lot of networks I'm part of. Thai's basic reason for sort of Raisan the Yatra is to foster entrepreneurship. So clearly there are a bunch of people who are more than happy to give. But if you want a serious relationship, I think both sides, what I tend to see sometimes is mentors can also be fairly informal and casual if you have not locked them in. So I see that if you can think of equity, if you have decided this is the right mentor for you, feel free to offer. You don't need to, it doesn't need to cover, calculated time and / things like that, but depending on the value of your equity, if you're already a mature startup, you can go down, whatever. But think about that, and that's a way to engage the mentor into a more serious long-term relationship. The last point I want to say, which I have proposed even within Thai and some of my networks which I am a part of, is ideally the mentor should get a chance to invest in a round which the startup is raising. In my mind, that's the best way to allow a mentor / investor to participate in your growth as you reach a funding round. Just go along at the same terms, maybe give them a discount of 20.
So I think, Sanjay, just to kind of paraphrase what you just said, I think to work out the construct upfront, right? Define expectations clearly, right? What is reasonable to expect in a 3-6 month window, right? And also about the point you made, a great point you made about setting up a mentor board, right? Because it's very hard for one mentor to be, Brahma, Vishnu, in one. Because you may need a deep tech startup which needs somebody who can bring tech value. You need somebody who can.
Again, good question. So, like I said, this whole 3-month period, actually, any sort of a relationship which has to, be nurtured and grow, okay? Yes, there can be misunderstandings, there can be expectations from either side which are not met. I'm a big believer in, as they call, radical candor, right? So both as a mentor, if I see something is not happening, if somebody is not taking this seriously, I would be very happy to have a mature conversation and say, if it's not working out, it's perfectly fine. And there have been, there's not been toxicity, but there have been mentoring relationships where I've said, I don't think I can add any value further. So let's just break that, right? From the other side, I just touched upon a sample case where I said a mentor took equity and didn't sort of, So there again, I think founders have to be equally careful in nurturing the mentor relationship. Don't hesitate. There is always a way to communicate where you can be clear without being impolite or without hurting somebody. I'm very fond of that, but I'm with no exceptions, I'm an advocate of, if you find something is not working, cut it and move forward. I don't think you should let something fester, and that's very important.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. Sure. Please. We can throw the house open, for questions.
Useful insight, Sanjay. I have one question. So I'm a mentor in a way, but I'm part of the T-Hub team. So when we talk to startups, so the nagging question I always have is in terms of, we clearly said operations we will not get into, but from a mentoring perspective, when they have a, let's say, SaaS-based product or a mobile app, so sometimes the startup comes and say, hey, can you download my app, test it out, and then give me feedback and give me insights into what technology you're using. So what are the boundaries where a mentor should stop?
Yeah. Actually, I don't believe in any boundary, like once they are ready. I wouldn't mind, actually I've told a couple of my startups who went through funding discussions where they got bullied by a possible investor. I said, next time if you want, I don't mind accompanying you. I can be there. Because sometimes when there are 2 or 3 very young founders in their early 30s, and I'm not broad brushing this, but some investors can give them a sort of deadline and say, boss, if you don't take this check, nobody else will ever invest in you again, and things like that. So I don't think there are any real angels out there in the ecosystem. There are all sorts of things which happen. So I wouldn't mind chaperoning my startup team and being with them. So I hope I answered your question. I don't think there are any lines there. The key point is, like I said, a golf caddy is not going to play the shot. A caddy in golf, I'm sure some of you watch golf, know golf, is helping you from their own experience to say, this is the distance, this is the wind speed, this is the time of the day. You could consider hitting your 5-iron, and I think you will hit 170 to 180 yards. But the final decision, like Anish said, is the player. You swing. Thank you.
That was a very Tiger Woods-like statement, huh?
I can't help bringing golf into my conversation. Vivek and some of my friends know that.
I know. I think the US Open starts today, right? Masters starts today. Yeah. Okay. So, any further questions? We can go on, right?
Yeah. Thanks. Firstly, thanks for making me part of this event today. My name is Prasad Mudigonda. I've been in corporate for about 3 decades, and last 3 years I'm happen. Very, very eager. Naturally so, I'm not being critical of them, but then there is a time, right? It's not that there is a formula for it, but then that's where the mentors coming and saying, okay, this will work and this will not work. So I think T-Hub, and then I didn't have a proper response. So I wasn't sure what happened to those startups that I was talking to.
That we don't have a mechanism to, so for example, we connect a mentor to a mentee, right? And post that, it's really between the mentor and mentee, and there's no visibility at all on what is happening, right? So some of these, like where you had 2 conversations, after that, things have just, it's a black hole. You don't know really what's going on, right? So one of the things we are looking at, and we'll get that done fairly quickly, definitely within the course of this quarter, is we are actually looking at implementing a mentor platform. Okay, so we're trying to get some automation done, okay, because of 2 things. One is that for us, see, the whole point is about getting a meaningful engagement going between both the mentor and mentee. In fact, I don't know if Srikanth is here. One of our startups here actually. He runs a startup called Impact. So that's one of the platforms we are evaluating. We are also looking at a platform called Mentor Cloud, right? And I think honestly we are a little torn because we want to support our startups. Again, the point he made, right, that the maturity part. But we'll decide that phase, to company public, all of that. But if there's a deep tech startup, he's mentoring, and somebody who, we want somebody who's a, let's say, blockchain, metaverse, whatever. And if there's a mentor, today there is no mechanism for you to know what the other mentors are doing. So we think about it as both the mentors helping other mentors, apart from mentors obviously helping startups. So we will invest in that automation platform. And obviously I'm going to make a request for you to spend some of your time on putting in what you do in the thing, because then we'll also get to know, for example, if there's a problem which you've solved for one startup, right? It will help us be able to solve that problem for another startup. Right? Today it is all one-to-one, right? So we are going to invest in that.
Not that one mentor will solve every problem. Maybe I'm good at connections with the bank. Somebody is good at maybe some technology. So there should be a way of passing on the request to some other mentor. Something as Sir was saying about automating it. Like, no, okay, he has a question, I cannot answer. Sir, very rightly he said, I have many, at least 7-8 people disappearing after a few calls. Maybe I don't have the kind of, they found I'm not the right resource for their requirement in some way. So is there any way we can automate, okay, He needs something which I cannot do. Can I pass it on automatically to somebody who can catch it and help me? This is one way of looking at it. This is my suggestion.
Again, we can take the horse to water. One of the challenges I have found in any form of automation, right, is getting people to adopt, right? Because it's going to become one more app on your phone, right? And then you'll have to spend some time on it, right? But I don't think we can do this at scale without some level of automation.
I really feel that finally it has to be a pull factor. Actually, the startup, the founder is the center of the universe, right? We are there as resources, sounding boards. I think the startup is really the key there. I feel even in a platform, as we design it, the startup should be at the center. Because in some ways, it's like a child needing resources. They will find their way. And that's going back to the rigor part also. In fact, one of the things I've always shared with my own corporate colleagues also is I tell my children also, it's a 10-90 rule, right? Only 10% is what is given to you, 90% is what you do with it. So when only 10% is given to you, there's no room for disappointment. So it's very clear, So I feel even as mentors, frankly, I don't mind if somebody has been in touch. Yeah, if I have spent serious time with them, I definitely at least want them to wave me goodbye, and have a coffee with me and say, sir, I don't find you very helpful now, so thank you. I'm become bigger and I've moved on to somebody else, which is perfectly fine. But
that we have the last 5 years, maybe with 2 people specifically. How do you deal with such kind of things? Where your ethics do not match with their ethics or something like that.
Right. I'm not sure of the specifics, Ravi, but sure. No, I'm not asking you for that. But like I said, I think the choice is with us. So let me illustrate. Let's say one of our startups which we are mentoring is either not following integrity in terms of they have raised funds and some of those funds are being diverted, or they are seeking business by making certain under the table payments, etc. Right, Ravi? So I would say, I think as a mentor, our role is clearly to point out to the founder that this is going to cost you. In fact, even in regulatory, I think Sundari mentioned that, right? A lot of startups, in fact, on the finance and basic compliance side, right, housekeeping side, they sort of, that's a blind side. And I don't blame them because they have so many things happening. They are overwhelmed by it. But what I try to share with them is when you work so hard, when you have an investor ready, they are going to do a diligence on you, and that diligence will fail because you missed filing 3 returns with the ROC, or you didn't register with the PF or ESI. So what I would say, Ravi,
behind us also. Does I have a question? Or?
Yeah, he has a question.
Okay.
You can unmute himself.
Vijay, if you can unmute yourself.
Vijay, if you can unmute yourself and ask the question, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. It's been a wonderful experience today. I am an upcoming mentor, and I really I thank Raghuveer and Suresh when I had an opportunity to meet up with them 1 month ago in Hyderabad. Sorry for not being able to meet up here in person. And also forgive me, forgive my ignorance. I might be very new to your ecosystem. My question here is, for example, it's a corollary to multiple questions already asked by mentors prior to me, but let me also repeat that. Somebody suggested that you may probably need multiple mentors for an organization or a startup. Now my question to you is, I come from sales, business development, marketing for the SaaS industry. I've got close to about 3 decades of experience doing that. Often what I feel is, there's a famous saying, you can't run the startup that we are engaged with. Do we have a say in, let us say, helping the startups to get the right talent to perform the right job? That is my question.
Yeah, Vijay, this is Sanjay. Nice to meet you today. My take is yes, absolutely. In fact, I touched upon this briefly earlier. I think one of the things startup founders can gain from mentors is, one is the access to the network, because folks like us who spend time in corporate, we have several colleagues, team members who may now be very great fits for some of the positions which the startup can hire. And because the startup founders are often pretty young with say 5 to 7 years experience, they haven't had that benefit of the journey to have built a network of experienced talent. So absolutely, Vijay. The only point I would say is that I think it's about opening the mind of the founder to, one, what are the key positions, right? Just like the business milestones, I always believe there are certain key hiring milestones which a startup should set up a 3-year plan for. And having said that, I think at the point of selling or recruiting, it helps to have a mentor sit on that position, because sometimes a senior person may not be convinced just by the founder. Of course the passion is there, of course the future plan is there, but when they see a person like me with no hair and who's sitting beside the founder, they might get some additional weight to that, saying if this person is also convinced and he's spending time, he's invested, maybe there is a stability in addition to the huge vibrancy and the passion which the founder has. So I think it's a great additional value which the mentor can bring to the table. Absolutely.
Right. So in technology, in technical terms, we call it scope. So is this a part of an agreed scope or something? I'm just trying to understand how I should be probably looking at whenever I engage in a startup.
So again, Vijay, as a mentor, actually the scope is only indicative. It is not exclusive of anything. Like I said, nurture capital, right? So, kuch bhi karenge, no problem. In fact, be a personal coach. In fact, even in sometimes, even as the founders, between founders also there could be disputes where they come to you for some form of a not arbitration, but at least patching up things like that. So there is nothing out of scope. Absolutely.
Sanjay, I got an idea from what you said. Now there are a bunch of programs which are being done for people to figure out how to become angel investors. So for example, CI is doing one program now, fairly popular program on, there's a lot of, for example, a lot of old wealth in Hyderabad. So figuring out how to get those people to become angel. Corporate also coming, correct? Yeah. So I think maybe there's now a case, and maybe there's a startup here, trying to figure out how do we put together a curated program, how do you become a mentor, right? And you can lead it, Sanjay.
Yeah, one.
I think one or two additional programs, I don't know whether it's a part of the plan or not. The co-founder mixer because Sanjay alluded to why it is important to have at least 2 or 3 co-founders, and the persona to be a hacker, a hustler, and a visionary, of these co-founder persona, right? So some kind of a co-founder mixer, if everybody is a hacker in the team, or they don't hustlers, or they're no visionary, etc. Because mentors also can play that role of being a visionary till the time. We've seen examples of people doing that. Google is a great example. So this is a possibility where the mentors can play a role of being that visionary, set certain initial governance, initial issues which Sanjay has been speaking about into perspective, so that the young entrepreneur is working on either the product or getting their market fit and other things ready. So that is a co-founder mixer as a program if T-Hub wants to. I think one of us can definitely, Tanuja is here, she comes from HR background, we can definitely facilitate such sessions for T-Hub.
I need a co-founder myself.
Okay.
So funny, just to quickly respond, we had a community event, the first community event we had, which was when about 2 weeks ago. The first time, again, this was a kind of revelation, particularly for me. We have 160 startups in this building, right? And one of the things as went around, walking the corridors, I realized many of the founders don't know the other founders. And the whole objective of having a community like this is not for us to just give, we are not a landlord, right, at THub, hopefully, right, is to also foster the whole thing about having 160 startups within the building is to also get them to engage with each other, right, because many of the nature of the problems they are trying to solve are by and large, give or take, 50% of the problems may be common, right, in terms of how do I build a team, how do I get customers, blah, blah.
No, it's a great value, just the community.
So what we did is we had an event in this hall. So we bunched all the startups in a particular vertical sitting here. So for example, we had, I think, about a dozen healthcare startups. We had SaaS and all of that. What we did not do, and we were waiting for this to happen, is to get the mentors in, right? So I just want to take a minute, Sanjay, of your time to talk a little bit about, I haven't talked about phase 2, and I think it's important for us to leave the hall with, so phase 2 is in progress, slow, excruciatingly slow, but it is happening, okay? So if all the gods smile on us, we hope to be there by end of June, okay? It's got delayed for reasons which I would not rather want to go to in public, but we'll be there in June. And the reason I'm telling you that is in terms of the physical space, right? We have about 350,000 square feet in that building. We are not starting with 350,000 square feet. We are starting with 5 floors. And in terms of the physical seating capacity in the 5 floors, it is similar to what we have here. We have about 937 seats here. We have about 960 seats in the first phase of that building. But when built to full capacity, we'll have 3,200 seats in that building. So what we are trying to do by design in that building is to make sure all the relevant stakeholders can be in that building. So when I say relevant stakeholders, it is entrepreneurs, it is corporates. We already have 2 banks which are going to be there, ICICI and HDFC Bank. We've made an open offer to all VCs to be provided a space there at no cost, right? So that organic collisions, you can bump into a VC and tell him write a check, sometimes hold a gun, whatever. Vikrant has left, so I can say that. He's there, right? Okay. Vikrant, you should be there.
He got his checkbook with him today also. He got his checkbook today also.
Oh, you got your checkbook? Okay. Yeah. And then we are also getting a few trade, consulates to be there. There are 140 consulate generals in India, and we are working actually with one of them here to make sure that consulates are present there, so that for example, our startups wanting to go to other markets, etc. So I'm also opening, we also have 3 large event rooms. So this room can accommodate at full capacity about 200. We have a room of double this size. We also have an outdoor space which can accommodate 400 people and so on. So one of the things we'll hopefully do is to get all of you to come there more often. We'll try and calendar it. We will not ask you to come every week. We'll try and do it once a quarter at least. The only restriction, it's a government building, so no alcohol is allowed. Some of you may not enjoy that, but we'll try and make it fun, right, to come there. So look forward to having you all there for the inauguration, right. We do hope it's more than, it's not just a physical structure. We want to really create a community and build out, a very strong entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Wonderful. Congratulations. I think there's one question here. He's been waiting from some time.
Hi, thank you, Sanjay. I am Ravi Kama. I am co-founder of an upcoming edtech startup. We are a graduate. To reach that, expert at a given point of time is very difficult. So what do you think is the best way to reach a mentor? Probably sometimes an ad hoc request. And what should be the readiness?
Is through a warm handshake, an introduction. Okay, so whether it's MSR making an introduction or whoever, I think all of us have enough networks. In fact, Hyderabad is such a small ecosystem that you will always find a quarter-degree separation to a person you want to reach, right? The good news, Ravi, is that, in fact, like I said, even from the Thai ecosystem, I see so many of my colleagues wanting to give time, okay? are ready to provide certain inputs. They may not have had the benefit of having spent 7-8 years in the ecosystem, but many of them have. So there are a lot of new people coming into the pool of potential mentors whom you can reach out, Ravi. Again, I would like to encourage you that a mentor can even be a one-time catch-up, right? So like in EdTech, you may want to, actually the founders of existing companies, successful founders, which is again, I always tell my startup friends that they're always sort of saying, sir, a seed round in India gets us 500K, a seed round in the Valley gets us $5 million. So I try to remind the founders that the Valley is a 30-year-old ecosystem. It's a 40-year-old ecosystem. In that way, India, if you see, is going through the first cycle of rotation, right? The first few, the Flipkart mafia and several other mafias are being formed now. So the Udaan founders were part of Flipkart mafia. They went to raise 100 million, they got 385 million, right? Believe it or not. So it looks great. So what I'm saying, Ravi, is that, in fact, I'm recently, I'm very happy that I got to invest in a fund called the Together Fund, which is formed by founders. All the LPs in the fund are actually founders. So what I'm saying, Ravi, is that one, the pool of mentors is largely increasing. Two, like you said, if you can get a warm intro, you get a 30-minute time, which I don't think is very difficult, because a mentor is generally open. You could say that sometime next week, can I get 30 minutes of your time? This is my background. This is the company. This is what I'm looking for. I would say 7 out of 10 people will respond. They may say, no, give me 1 more week time. Let's catch up in the 3rd week of April. But a half an hour call, I don't think people will decline. A mentor is not an investor, right? So I would encourage you to reach out, Ravi, a well-framed communication with a little bit gist of what you are doing. If you want to put 3 slides into it, put that in. You will get a good response, Ravi, not a problem. That's all I can say, okay? Warm handshake is ideal, but even a cold call will get you there. If you can get an email or go via LinkedIn, not a problem. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Thank you so much, MSR, for answering all the questions. Thank you for the audience for such wonderful questions. We know that there would be so much curiosity because it was not only insightful, it was actionable at the same time. So now that we are done with the fireside chat and AMA, we'd like to give a small token of appreciation to all our mentors for their effort, time, and overall contribution to T-Hub and T-Hub startups. There are a few things that we have in mind, and we have as an acknowledgement of your efforts. So there is, and right before that, we would like to invite one more partner from the ecosystem. We have Ramadevi Lanka Garu over here, who is currently the Director of Emerging Technology under the Ministry of IT EC, to share your experiences and a few words with the audience over here. Welcome, ma'am. Please, on the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I thought MSR will be asking me some questions so I can answer that format I actually expected, but this is a different one. Well, good to be part of this, event here. Well, I work with the government, and I try to provide an enabling environment for startups, to work with the government. That's my role, that's what I do. So it's a different perspective that I bring compared to what other mentors, do here. But first let me tell you one thing, we are currently working with about, I think, 30 to 40 startups, who are working with various departments. And they're in various stages, some have completed implementations, some are still work in progress, and so on. But one thing I can surely say is, the departments are really happy to work with the startups because it's a really refreshing change for them, having interacted with big companies, where it takes time for them to take any decision, they're process oriented and so on. The startups are very agile in terms of, responding back to the requirements, government requirements and so on. So they're really happy to work with, startups. But there is always this, mismatch of expectations on both sides. While the government, thinks that the startups, the way we are actually, helping startups implement is we are identifying a particular problem statement within the government, a particular use case where a startup has solution for it, and we are getting it implemented. But sometimes the government, departments, they expect a lot from it. They think the startup will actually develop end-to-end solutions for their entire, the problem statement. While, we actually play that role in, setting those expectations within the government. And from the startup side, well, it's a government, department, government organization. It's totally a different animal, I would say, though I'm part of the government, So there are a lot of challenges. Well, I think I'm the odd woman out here, with this. I don't see anybody wearing a mask. So, yeah, it's a totally different ballgame, I would say, working with the government. Number one, challenges in terms of, turnaround times, like when you actually want something from a particular government department, it does take time. Well, again, our team tries to, help the startups play that, role wherein they try to cut down the time and so on, but it's still a challenge, I would say, that's the number one startup challenge. Second, working with the government departments is, again, if you need data or anything, that's again a challenge. It takes time. While we, try to do our best in terms of addressing that challenge, but still it remains. Because at the end of the day, IT&C department plays an enabling role, and different departments, they are in charge of their own, functions and so on. But despite that, I would say all these challenges, we are seeing, large number of, I wouldn't say large number, but many implementations going successfully forward. And unfortunately, the role that we are playing right now is only to help the startup implement a pilot, where it's sometimes a paid pilot, or sometimes they do pro bono also. Some of the startups, just to get access to data, get access to those processes. And in this process, sometimes the government department officials, they turn as mentors. That's an additional advantage that the startups get to fine-tune their product or to sort of customize to a particular requirement. They offer a lot of domain experts, be it health tech, be it, agri-tech, ed-tech, any domain. If they try to reach out to any government department, in turn, though these challenges exist, they also get mentorship indirectly. That's not, we don't plan it, but it eventually happens, where, because a lot of government officials have good domain knowledge in these areas with respect to the government processes, function, and outreach of, the government services. That's one part. Second, what I would like to mention is, it's kind of an advice that I want to share with, startups based on my experience within the government sector for the past 3 years, While we would like to be the first customer, as Jayashanjan sir always says, government would like to be the first customer. We give an opportunity to pilot your solutions, but don't bank or don't make your product only for the government, requirements. Government could be one customer, and your product features say match a certain functionality of the government. But if you completely depend on the government, I'm not sure. I don't want to be pessimistic here, but that's indeed a challenge, Government could be only one of the customers that you're looking at. That will actually, in fact, help you rather than, but if you're focusing only on the government, if it doesn't work, because it happens even with the private sector too, private customers also, but it's more with the government. If the government doesn't like the solution, or for whatever reasons it doesn't go forward, then you're doomed. So just keep this at the back of your mind when you're actually working with the government. So government is not going to be the only customer. But for certain domains like agri-tech, if you look at, we are working with a lot of startups, with many startups, the scale and size is humongous, what that government can offer. So as an individual startup, you will not be able to reach out to, say, if you need 100 farmers, 500 farmers, it will be really challenging for you. But as a government, we would be able to help you with that, Our agriculture department, together with our emerging technologies wing, we actually are identifying those ground level resources. Not only farmers, there are a large number of agriculture extension officers. they would actually help you to reach out to the farmers. I'm just giving you an example in agri-tech. This could be, in any other domain. It could be ed-tech, it could be health tech, and so on. Because while we are actually located in Hyderabad, if you look at the entire state of Telangana, there's a huge network of, organizations within that particular domain. So if you take agri-tech itself, we have districts, then mandals, then villages, and so on. So, but we have, as a government, we have huge network of officials, reaching out to these last mile connectivity or last mile farmers. So we actually help you in that, in reaching out to large number of customers for you. Well, I think this is what I wanted to share you, and I would like to mention one thing. I think you are all, a lot of people have spoken about, good things, but you are at the right time, in the right space, I think. Because India is really, going great in terms of funding for startups. So wishing you all the best. And if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer. Yeah. Well, I'm doing a good job then. Yeah. Are there any startups here working with the government? No. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf.
As I said, we are an upcoming EdTech platform, and our intent is to drive the digitalization that government be one of the players in the EdTech digitalization that Telangana government is wanting to do. We want to work with the government in fulfilling that vision of the government.
Sure.
We'll be very happy to speak to you and see how we can
take it forward. Sure, I didn't get your name.
My name is Ravi.
Yeah. Sure, Ravi, we can discuss later as to how to take it forward.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right then.
Thank you so much, Ramadevi Garu, for your wonderful words and your advice to all the mentors and startups. Now, as we all know, a mentor is of monumental importance to startups and entrepreneurs, and knowledge and ideas harvested through years of experience are crucial to nurturing and strengthening the innovation ecosystem. And as I said earlier, as a token of appreciation and acknowledgement to all our mentors, we have a few tokens and acknowledgement to give to the mentors. One of them is the pin, mentor pin, an exclusive mentor pin from T-Hub for all the mentors. Our team will just come towards you, and I request you to pick up the mentor pin and pin it on yourself. So this is one of the things. Second, we have an exclusive T-Hub ID cards for all the mentors now, and these cards will enable all the mentors to enter T-Hub infrastructure anytime at your own disposal. While going out for lunch, you can pick up your ID cards. It's right there with your pictures on it. The third token for appreciation and contribution is a mentor certificate that can also be a digital certificate later, and you can use it as a physical copy and later on also use it on LinkedIn and other social media and professional media platforms. The certificates will reach you online through email.
Already done.
That's already reached your end. And to put things on black and white, we have also extended a letter of engagement to all the mentors, which would have already reached you. So these are certain things that we really wanted our mentors to have, which was missing earlier, but we really wanted our mentors to feel related to T-Hub, and this is the first step that we have taken, and we will continue to take such steps in the future as well. Thank you so much for your contribution, mentors, and coming here today. And we can move on for lunch. I think it's time. And while going out, we have our badges. Please pick your badges according to. And right before lunch, Dhruti will come on the stage for a brief vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We've had a truly wonderful meeting. I'm sure you'll agree with me. I'd like to start thanking the mentors who are present here today for taking the time and joining us in person, considering our invite, and they've all come from... Sure. May I just take a minute of your time? I'd like to invite Mr. Bhanuvarla Reddy to share his thoughts on mentoring. He's been mentoring T-Hub startups. One of them you've seen on record. Rinku Shah was his mentee. Bhanu, please join us.
Hello all. I think one of the girls actually spoke about me. It is me actually. Nobody clapped me at the time actually. So please do that. In fact, I was asking, Sriram and everybody, yaar, wo ladki baat kar rahi thi, koi dekhe hi nahi. So this is actually what is actually happening to all the mentors. But I'm very happy, MS Garu, that you have been calling and getting this done, actually organized to everybody. And I'm really proud to, of course, our Dronacharya, Sanjay ji is here. Sanjay Sahab, you are our Dronacharya. And mentor ka mentor hai, baap hai. So he's always across to him. In fact, we all go to him actually whenever we need any help or anything we require here. Funny, I can see wonderful people here, who have been guiding, helping us in all the way through actually. I'm sure one point which I really liked is the mentors meeting together is very important. This is one, whoever raised that point is one of the best points that I write today. Because we need to understand each other ourselves to, what is actually happening around. All of a sudden we come and meet, it doesn't make sense to all of us. So we should come and meet. And I'm sure whenever I did actually, you can do anything to your company. When I took a company for IPO, it was under my disposal. I could do everything for across. In fact, when I go and do for somebody else, I really get scared. I actually go and do a lot of research work actually. In fact, I can get 5 doctorates by now actually. I don't know, nobody is giving me, but I am definitely should get doctorates because I go and Google everything. In fact, today for a meeting coming here, I was flying down from Bengaluru, and I actually was Google searching what actually mentorship should do actually. And I was wondering about that because this is a place, in fact, the people all talk about, I went to College of Military Engineering one day in Dehradun, and they said this is a place where Dronacharya, gave all the training program to Arjuna and all those people actually. I'm sure this is the place for T-Hub where people can learn and do it. MS Garu, thank you so much. We'll do your wonderful work. Let's see, somebody challenged unicorns have not come today. We'll get all the cons today. Okay, that's all. Good luck, all the best to you. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Bhanu. Quick vote of thanks. Thank you, mentors. Thank you, ecosystem partners. Thank you, MSR, for all the support. Thank you, T-Hub team, for making this a wonderful event. I'm sure the mentors are happy. We'll keep them happy. Thank you. Can we all have a picture with all the mentors with their badges pinned with the T-Hub leadership?